Look at how the documentary came together, as told by the people who collaborated on it. It's The Making of the American Revolution, tonight at 7:30 on GBH2.
When you're getting ready for the day, get ready with us.
Welcome to GBH's Morning Edition. Thanks for having us with you.
GBH's Morning Edition with Mark Hurst.
Looking at local headlines this morning.
More local news. More diverse voices. More unique perspectives.
The gateway cities closer to Boston have seen a lot of investment. Others, particularly further west, haven't gotten that same level of investment.
GBH's Morning Edition. Weekdays starting at 6 on GBH 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News app. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on BPR and GBH and NEPM. Live from the library, we open the phone lines to talk about the so-called cynical, gullible American, as outlined in the Atlantic. Why don't we trust experts or anyone anymore? And why do we all keep falling for the snake oil salesman hawking, I don't know, virility pills? Call or text. Then it's CNN's John King and the Globe's Shirley Leung.
I'm Marjorie Egan, and for the second hour today, it's Boston Mayor Michelle Wu here at the Boston Public Library to take our questions and yours from White Stadium, the World Cup, bike lanes, and more. Call or text with your questions. It's all ahead. Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the U.S. military is winning in Iran. He spoke earlier today at the Pentagon. Hegseth echoed comments made yesterday by President Trump, who says the U.S. has achieved, quote, major strides in its military objectives. But NPR's Ruth Sherlock reports Trump's words have caused very mixed reaction among Iranians.
Hotels in this Turkish town close to the border are filled with Iranians fleeing the bombardment. At breakfast, they talk politics. There are mixed feelings about ending this war now. A 26-year-old woman who asked NPR not to name her because she could be arrested if she returns to Iran for speaking to foreign media says, after the government killed many thousands of people during nationwide demonstrations in January, she can't imagine having to continue living under this regime.
We lost so many people that it's just so hard to go back. There's this hole in your heart that a lot of people got killed.
And a mother with children who fled Tehran last night, where she said the sky was lit red from explosions, said she just wants the bombing to stop. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News, Van, Turkey.
President Trump has written online that if Iran stops the flow of crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. will hit Iran 20 times harder than they have been so far. One of Iran's top security officials had an online response today. Ali Laranjani told Trump Iran doesn't fear his threats, and he told Trump, quote, watch out for yourself, lest you be eliminated. The war has driven crude oil prices higher, and gas prices in the U.S. have climbed sharply. The motoring group, AAA, says the average cost of a gallon of regular gas is now $3.54. That's more than 50 cents higher than before the war started. NPR's Tovia Smith reports many motorists are worried about a long-lasting disruption in the supply of crude oil from the Middle East.
At gas stations around Boston, prices at the pumps have been climbing about 10 cents a day since Friday, leaving motorists like Kate Meyer concerned.
It's just shocking every day seeing the prices. It feels like it's just going to keep going up and up and up.
The national average for regular is about $3.54, according to AAA. Gas is going for over $5 in California. But gas prices are likely to shift rapidly following crude oil prices, which whipsawed yesterday from nearly $120 a barrel to end the day down at around $90. President Trump posted on social media that a short-term hike in oil prices is a, quote, very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Tovia Smith, NPR News.
On Wall Street, stock prices have switched directions. The Dow is now up more than 230 points. This is NPR.
Good morning with the latest from the GBH Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro. As we just heard from our colleagues at NPR, gas prices have jumped again yesterday locally, up almost 50 cents from a week ago. Average price of regular is $3.40 per gallon right now in Massachusetts, up from $2.90 last week. The Cape is on par with the state average of $3.40. Nantucket still the highest in the state at $4.60. NPR reporting prices up with the ongoing war in Iran, the largest jump since Russia invaded Ukraine. Well, the town of Brookline could be asked to approve what may be the biggest tax override in state history. Brookline.News reports Superintendent Bella Wong told the school committee to detail the impacts if they don't receive $24 million over 3 years. Their answer was the cutting of more than 200 positions, cuts to music programming, and the elimination of middle school world language courses. And the well-known national retail chain Eddie Bauer is about to liquidate its holdings. Norwood Patch reporting that after the company could not find a buyer after declaring bankruptcy last month, it's now preparing to close more than 170 locations, including 4 stores here in Massachusetts. The portfolio includes 150 locations in 40 U.S. states, 24 locations throughout Canada. Here in Massachusetts, Eddie Bauer locations are in Burlington, Lee, Linfield, and in Wrentham. In sports, the Bruins host L.A. at the Garden tonight. Celtics are in San Antonio tonight. The Fleet in Vancouver. Exhibition baseball. Red Sox host Detroit at Fort Myers. Sunny and 70 today. A good day to take the chill off the grill. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Strawberry.me, whose career coaches offer professional support to help people get unstuck, gain clarity, and move forward, whether advancing in a current role or choosing a new direction altogether. More at strawberry.me/public.
You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are finally back at the Boston Public Library. Very happy to be here, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, is going to be with us from noon to 1 today. The Attorney General is going to be with us on the 25th, right here at the library as well, also at 11. And the governor, also at 11 on March 27th at the library. Hello, Jim.
Hey, and by the way, you meant to say, and we should say thanks to all of our colleagues who did this fabulous work.
I know.
Fixing these failed systems at the library.
Yeah, we are very, very grateful for their efforts.
So we're starting the show with the so-called cynical, gullible Americans, as outlined in a New Atlantic piece by the guy who originated the phrase, "The cruelty is the point." That's author Adam Server. Why do so many millions say, "I'm doing my own research on medical questions like we know more than experts who've spent decades studying diseases"? Why does anybody believe, and these were Marjorie's suggested words, sex fiend and wormhead Robert Kennedy about Tylenol vaccines causing autism when years of empirical scientific studies have found no such thing? Why do we spend thousands on wellness products that don't work and invest our life savings in crypto for the paper currency collapse that never comes? It has its roots, we believe, back in a 2017 interview that Kellyanne Conway did with then host of Meet the Press, our friend Chuck Todd.
You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving, Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
Exactly. The message: experts are out, conspiracy theories are in. The lines are open at 877-301-8970. What is wrong with all of us that we keep falling, so many of us at least, for con artists in politics and other aspects of life? Why doesn't anyone trust experts, research, scientists anymore? And I would say most importantly, how do we turn that around for our own sake? 877-301-8970.
Well, you know, it used to be, and it's not all of us. It's
obviously,
but it's a certain percentage of us, and maybe I don't
not
know.
an insignificant percentage.
Yeah,
of us,
it's millions and millions of us.
I'm looking right here. 40% are confident in Kennedy. 42% confident in Mehmet Oz. So that's a pretty significant chunk.
Well, this piece in the Atlantic points out how facts are drowned out by these loud voices that say just the opposite. But it's also kind of a time thing that the same writer did a piece that said that we back in the 60s, like 77% of us believed the government, and now we're down to 22%.
Isn't that incredible?
22%. Well, I think it was a lot of things. I think it was Vietnam was a big thing, obviously, and the government lying. But it used to be more that you go to the supermarket in the days when they had all the two-headed stories about the babies with two heads, the checkout line and stuff, and you'd laugh and think that those were just these crazy tabloids. People would believe stuff, I think, a lot about diets. Somebody that had a weight issue was always on a new diet, and the new diet never worked because they gained the weight back. Or they believed it about wrinkle creams. Heaven knows I've tried a million of those. The Fountain of Youth
they're
kind
working
of thing.
actually pretty well.
I'm trying really hard,
You
Jim,
are.
but most of them don't work. But now it's kind of like about basic things having to do with health, or having to do a lot of it has to do with health stuff. All these wellness products that don't work, as you just said, people keep trying them anyway, and then they believe in all this crazy stuff. There are all these people out there that are getting the freeze-dried food for when the apocalypse comes, and then the day of the apocalypse.
Preppers.
The preppers always keeps moving. And a lot of people have invested their money, as you said, in crypto, because the paper currency is always going to fall apart. And it's been falling apart for about 100 years now, and it never quite
If you're
falls
criticizing these people, why do you have 400 cans of tuna fish in your basement? No, seriously, I've been there. I've seen it. 877-301-8970. Where did it all fall apart? If you have a neighbor or friend or coworker who is in that category of people, I think the best example was the one I said early on. I'm going to do my own research.
How many times have you heard
Dr.
that?
Fauci doesn't know what he's talking about.
I've heard that 1,000 times.
I know, it's incredible.
If I've heard it once. And the government does make mistakes. I mean, there are a lot of mistakes made during COVID. We didn't have to wear masks, then we did have to wear masks. We kept the schools closed much too long. We make mistakes with that. But that was about a new thing that we didn't really understand that well. But I think people lost a lot of credibility during COVID. And it talks about how this is ideal for people that are Trump supporters, the MAGA unit, the culture of Gullicism. That's what he calls it, the culture of Gullicism.
I never heard that word until I read the piece. Had you?
Yeah. Well, no, he puts the two words together, right? Gullible and the ism kind of thing go together. Yeah, so that's kind of clever.
Sort of.
But his point is, it lets the government off the hook for governing, because if you believe, like Kennedy does, that you can fix Americans' health problems with diet and exercise, then there's no need for the state to intervene on things like health care for people or on poverty issues that have a lot to do with people's health care problems. And it undermines trust in the scientific evidence, because it's much easier to kind of, if you're a good con man, like Trump is, to sell this stuff in your con-like way instead of looking at the
we're leaving out of this.
What?
We're leaving out of this conversation the most obvious, which is the person with the biggest platform in the world refers to every credible source of anything as scum and fake news and liars. I mean, so just as we had a conversation yesterday with Dr. Catherine Gerger-Marnette showing how many people believe that Tylenol crap, the reality is when you hear it relentlessly, you can't trust the New York Times, you can't trust CNN, you can't trust experts, you can't trust this and that. Obviously, it trickles down to a significant part of the population. 877-301-8970. Now, here's an anonymous texter who obviously has no idea what he's talking about. Jim, is it a lack of trust in people of authority? For example, radio hosts who drive Teslas that tell us we should boycott Amazon while they continue to use it. Who might that be?
I don't know. I don't know who that could possibly be.
877-301-8970. Where did this come from? And the lack of trust in almost everything. And how do we fix it, I think, is the most important question.
Here's a good one, too, from Brendan and Worcester. I think you can draw a straight line from the assassination of JFK, MLK, RFK, Vietnam, Pentagon Papers, Watergate, Iran-Contra, the lies justifying the Iraq War, the Great Recession, COVID-19, all the way to Trump and MAGA. Americans need to believe in America again and each other. I think we will get there, but it may get worse before it gets better. I think that's a very astute analysis. And the other institutions people believed in, like the Catholic Church, that kind of went down the tubes during the sex abuse
They still
crisis.
believe in the military, actually. The numbers I was just looking this morning, really high.
Because the military, whatever you think of this Iran war, does
really
its
competent.
job very competently and very bravely and very authoritative. It's kind of the one thing, when you think about things that still work, I think it's like local fire departments and the military, and sometimes local police departments too, the law enforcement.
Do you want to take calls in this segment, or
Shelley
what's the
and
deal?
Attleboro,
Hi,
thank you for
Shelley.
calling.
Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure.
My comment is about the trust among people of color when dealing with the medical field. I've been on both sides as a health policy and health services researcher and also as a patient. And I have been in a situation where I've received from white doctors information that's different than what my white counterparts have received. And that creates a mistrust. And so when, data comes out, research comes out, a lot of my friends discount that.
Yeah, can I tell you, though, Shelley, the difference between what we're talking about and what you're talking about is the lack of trust, particularly for black people in this country in the medical profession, is well-founded. I mean, we have talked about most recently, forget all of the research that was done where black people were lied to. We talked about the survey not too long ago, a few years ago, of white residents in medical school who thought the skin of black people was thicker than white people. They were more impervious to pain. These are residents in medical schools in the late 20-teens. So the skepticism there is well-founded, and until proven otherwise, I'd be in the exact same boat. Shelley, thanks for your thought, though.
Shelley is in a difficult boat because at the same time, you're not going to be able to do your own research as a layperson to figure out your misdiagnosis in the same way, even though there may be racism involved in the diagnostics.
No, I understand, but her basic point about lack of trust of you, particularly if it's a white doctor, is based on reality, not based upon whatever Kellyanne Conway said, alternative facts. By the way, Chuck's response was great. You know how many times reporters let something pass and are embarrassed for years? Wait a minute. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They are falsehoods. I mean, it's so true. Jamie in Hanover, welcome to the show. Thanks for calling. Hi.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my call.
Of course.
So I'm a PhD in cell biology, cancer researcher for over 20 years. And the number of times that I've heard there's a cure for cancer, but pharma doesn't want it out is, I'd be a rich woman. And I think that, there's this capitalism issue, too, where people think that the money, but, there's this whole field. And it's not just one cure we need. It's like hundreds. So that's too complicated. It's much easier to say, I'm going to take some dewormer and cure it myself, or do a fast, or do a juice cleanse.
What do you say to people when they say what you described to us? What's your response to those people?
Well, I mean, I work in a nonprofit. I'm working to save a child. Like that. Yes, there are problems with our pharma industry, but they want to develop a drug. Because if you make a drug that a cancer patient's on for the rest of their life, that's, gold mine for them.
So
and
how do we
examples that I can show them?
How do we disabuse people of the belief? Let's focus narrowly on the thing you brought up, that they're hiding the cures because they don't want us to have them. Obviously in a one-on-one conversation, hopefully you can move people in a larger sort of, I think we asked Dr. Fauci this question when he was on the show a few years ago, and we said to him, you're worried about the anti-science, for lack of a better expression, movement, and he said he was deeply concerned, and I'm not sure he had an answer as to how to cure it. Do you, Jamie?
No, I don't, and I hate to admit that I'm even more disillusioned with social media and the power of influencers. One thing that does give me hope is that there are a lot of scientists online that are trying to do this, but I feel like we do need better education. I mean, it just comes down to, an educated populace.
I agree with you. Jamie, thanks for calling. Here's a perfect follow-up to what Jamie had to say. Anonymous texter. The problem is social media and the internet. It's ruined our attention span and critical thinking skills, and the unfettered access to, quote, information, end quote, and allowing every idiot a platform to advance turbo clown ideas and the floodgates are open. That's a really important point.
And I think there's also a resentment of the experts that they're sort of, they think they're better than you and they're the elite and holier than thou.
So what's your cure? What's your fix for this?
I have no fix, Jim.
Perfect.
Do you have a fix?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, why don't you tell us?
I'm sorry, I can't share it with you.
I can't reveal at this moment. Okay, now here's a texter. I think this person is sincere and says, Jim gets the COVID shot every year and gets COVID annually. I don't get a COVID shot, and I never got COVID. That's all the research I need. Now, that's a person, I think, that thinks that the COVID vaccines are ineffectual.
Well, can I respond respectfully to that person? Yep. You're an idiot. Now, let me tell you, how many times through the years, I assume that person was joking.
No, I don't think that person was joking.
Excuse me, I haven't ended up in the hospital. No one ever said the COVID vaccine was going to prevent you from getting COVID. They said it is likely it's going to prevent it. It's very highly likely it's going to prevent you from getting really ill.
It's like the flu.
I have had COVID 5 or 6 times. I have never been really ill
and
never had to go to a hospital.
Same thing with the flu vaccine. It's not going to prevent you from getting the flu. It's going to prevent you from getting really sick if you get the flu.
Can I tell you something? There's some days at this show that I wish I had COVID. Let me tell you. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, Jim.
Thank you. I think
Don
some
in
of the
Rhode Island,
listeners
thank
feel
you for
the same
calling.
way. Hi, Don.
Hi, Don.
Hello, Don.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I love the show. I listen every day.
Thank you. You're very nice.
So, yeah, I called a couple months ago. I mentioned my wife had a liver transplant, and we talked about vaccinations. And
Hey, Don, we really want to talk to you, and I do remember you, but you're breaking up, so we're going to put you on hold, walk to another room, or do something. We'll take a call, and we'll come right back to you, okay? George in Rhode Island.
Hi, George.
Hello, George.
Hi. What I was going to mention, I think the topic is that why do Americans seem so gullible and reject facts? I think there's 2 parts to that are deep in the American culture. One part is that the United States was founded on distrust of government against the King of England and the Parliament. I think that's a deep strain in the American culture. And the other one is that that makes us different from the Canadians. The Loyalists went to Canada. They have a more paternalistic government. And I think there's a deep strain of anti-intellectualism in American society. In 1963 or 64, Richard Hofstadter wrote a book called Anti-Intellectualism in American Culture. And he was writing about how Adlai Stevenson failed because he was perceived to be an egghead, or some people who were too smart to be in government. And then I think in order for someone to be a well-informed American voter, they should have a background in American history, world history, geopolitics, economics. And most Americans, not to their fault, are not well-versed enough in all of those because we have our own everyday concerns. But I think the combination of all of those leads us to where we are now.
George,
and that's why someone could say
that was a terrific
that was
call.
a great call.
Can I, for the 400th time since he mentioned Adlai Stevenson, say my mother, he was my mother's favorite politician.
Right.
He ran against Dwight Eisenhower twice, senator from Illinois, and he lost, obviously, both times. One of the great lines ever was he's at the Democratic convention where he's getting nominated the first or second time, and a woman, I don't know if this is apocryphal or real, but the woman walks up to him and says, "Oh, Senator Stevenson, every thinking person is voting for you." And his response is, "Sadly, madam, I need a majority," which I thought was a pretty good line.
Okay. Well, here's the other side of the coin. And again, I assume Caitlin from Clinton is telling the truth. She says, I currently believe everything and nothing all at once. There was a time where I thought QAnon was nuts, but now we are here. I find myself agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Candace Owens. What is happening to us? We are in the twilight zone.
Don in Rhode Island, we're told you have better connection. Welcome back.
By the way,
I'm sorry,
Owens
Don.
has, I'm sorry, just to
No,
say,
go ahead, sure.
people don't know, she's I guess you call her a podcaster, influencer. I think she's got millions of listeners, if I'm not exaggerating, and she's way out there, and people listen to her.
People watch Fox News, too. You aware of that?
I do know.
They're sort of way out there, too.
Well, and
let's take Don. Don,
okay.
Rhode Island, you're back with us. Thank you. Hi.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think the problem is the way.
This is no better. This is no better. We're going to try a third time,
I don't know,
Don. So don't
Apologies.
go away. We'll try it one more time in a second. Ann in Lincoln, hi.
Oh, hi, Jim and Marjorie. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I know you guys are in the newly improved studio, but I'm still hearing that echo. It's terrible.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway,
Anne, can you withdraw that statement if you don't mind, just to make us feel better? I'm kidding. Go ahead, Anne.
Well, I don't know.
No, go right ahead.
Over there
no, it's not your fault. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to say I've been living this transition of distrust and conspiracy through a close family member of mine since the 1980s.
Yikes.
And I saw then him just grab onto Reagan saying government is the problem, and Rush Limbaugh. Oh my God, he brought all stuff to the masses of distrusting anything that, universities are liberal, the media is liberal biased. I saw this through this family member moving toward all these skeptical ideas of everything that people used to trust. And it's just been terrible, honestly.
Well, even though you may trace
I don't
this
know if it started
to Reagan, I would say Reagan's worst day is Donald Trump's best day, frankly. And I was no Reagan fan, but he can't hold a candle to the deceit of the current president of the United States. Ann, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
In terms of Trump, this piece also talks about how loyalty demands that you ignore the facts.
That's a very good point.
And he points out that, like the right wing's original take on the Epstein files, supposedly the world's most important conspiracy theory ever, until they're found ties in the Epstein files to conservative figures, including Trump and Steve Bannon, and suddenly the story no longer mattered if you were in that MAGA wing of the party.
That's a great point. By the way, you're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Don, we're told you're ready for action. Hi, Don.
Sorry, Don.
I hope so. Yeah, I think the way that science is taught needs to be changed. And that's coming from a 36-year science teacher. I think the problem is, through most of my career, the emphasis was always on factoidal information and know things. And also, and I know this MCAS is an issue, but, things like preparing students for the MCAS and the SATs, rather than using the scientific method to develop critical thinking skills. I think when people say even the word theory, that they don't really understand what a theory is as opposed to a hypothesis. And and that's the issue, because people get turned off by science. Oh man, class, but memorizing information that now can essentially be Googled doesn't do anything to develop critical thinking skills.
Don, thank you. Glad you stuck around, and thank goodness he didn't ask me the difference between theory and a hypothesis. We appreciate your call. 877-301-8970.
Also, another angle here is the idea that we prefer simple answers to complex answers, like the problems with what's going on in America today, why we have so many problems. Well, no housing, it's the immigrants' fault. No job, it's the immigrants' fault. Inflation, it's the immigrants' fault. And we are blaming immigrants for a lot of our woes, and I think that's an easy answer to a problem that's much bigger.
But the Trump factor, obviously, and Twitter. You wisely don't spend much time on Twitter. But
I don't.
The texter who said that
your town has just gotten rid of it for official business.
I know it's
Cambridge.
Cambridge. It's
yep.
pretty. We're going to ask Mayor Wu if she's thinking of a similar thing in Boston. By the way, she doesn't use it anymore. Do you know that from 6 or 8 months ago?
I think she's on Blue Sky.
I think she's on several things, but she is not there. I'm sorry.
Ryan from Rutland says, there is and has never been an echo. We sound great. That's what Rutland says. Ryan says from Rutland, rather. Oops.
You know what Ryan is saying? Alternative facts. Because there used to be, and maybe it's just in Lincoln, but we're hoping that there's not going to be a here kind of thing.
877-301-8970. Do we have time for one more quick call? Will in Boston.
30 seconds, Will.
Hi, Will.
Hi.
Hi, I want to open a can of worms and talk about the role of religion in getting people to believe unbelievable. Look at the story of Doubting Thomas. The whole lesson is it's easy to believe believable things and you don't get any credit for it. We want you to believe unbelievable things, and that makes you a better person.
I like it.
It's a good one to end the conversation, Will.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very concise, too.
Okay, coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk with CNN's John King. We're going to talk to him, obviously, about the war in Iran, exploding gas prices, and this incredible story of the kind of sneaky in the middle of the night or 4 o'clock in the morning placement of a plaque down on Capitol Hill to commend the service of police officers during the January 6 riots. Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. We're happily and finally back at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The mayor of Boston will be with us from noon to 1 here at the library.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, she made Broadway history about women making history. Shaina Taub became the first woman to win Tony Awards for Best Book and Best Score on her own for the musical Suffs. As the show arrives in Boston, it brings the suffragists to life, the women who organized, protested, and forced the nation to grant them the right to vote. Shaina Taub joins us to talk about bringing the suffragists' fight to the stage. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Speakeasy Stage Company, presenting The Antiquities, a genre-defying retrospective on the human experience, is now open and runs through March 28th. Ticket info at speakeasystage.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're finally back at the library, and we're thrilled, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu joins us in exactly 30 minutes for Ask the Mayor from noon to 1. Attorney General joins us on the 25th at 11. The governor joins us on the 27th at 11, both at the library. Joined now on Zoom by CNN's chief national correspondent, John King. John is, of course, behind the great reporting project All Over the Map. John, it's good to see you.
Happy Tuesday. I will yield in time for the mayor. Way more important than I.
I wouldn't say that.
John, we're so happy to talk to you, actually, because we want to know, is the war in Iran over, or is it just beginning?
I get the question. I get the question in the sense that, including today and in the last 24 hours, and actually since the day it began, mixed messages constantly from the president, from his defense secretary, from other leaders in the administration. And you have to wonder, if you talk to the Trump White House, they say this is part of his strategic brilliance. He's being unpredictable. The Iranians won't know what's coming next. If you're the American people, whether you support, oppose, or just have questions about what's happening here, it is very hard to understand both the rationale for why it started to begin with keeps changing, and the president has given zero clear delineation of what he considers the finish line when you have an off-ramp. And so on the one hand, he says we're almost done, and then Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, said today that today will be the most aggressive day when it comes to the number and the intensity of the strikes. So I can't answer your question.
My younger daughter texted me this morning, and she's obsessed with this, and I thought it was a joke. She said, do you hear what she doesn't even say who, what he said this morning is that we're going to have a, quote, friendly takeover of Cuba. And I wrote back and I said, very funny, until I Googled it, and Trump had said there's going to be a friendly takeover of Cuba. What's going on? I mean, this is Donald No Entanglement Trump. It is hundreds of Republicans running for re-election in November who engaged in the no entanglement philosophy because that's what they were told to do by their fearless leader. Is this a joke, or is this his next, quote, excursion, John King?
Well, I was going to make that point that I don't think, again, whether you agree with this or disagree with this, I don't think that you want the president of the United States using the word little excursion when it comes to a military action that has already resulted in the deaths of 7 American heroes. Whether you agree or disagree with the president's decision to bomb Iran, those are American heroes. And so you mentioned, look, this president has been very different when it comes to the use of power especially overseas military power, than what he campaigned on. That's just a clear fact. Some Trump voters say, well, it's Donald Trump. If he says it's the right thing to do, I'm with him. But you just see it here, Jim. Venezuela, he thinks Iran is Venezuela. I just urge people to, A, just get a map of where we are in the world, B, look at a little bit of history of the size of the country, the population of the country, the strategic importance of the country, whether that country has regional ambitions or global ambitions. But the president has confused a lot of people, but he seems to think this will be easy. And to that, I would just add this, we don't control the Panama Canal. That was going to be easy and over. We don't control Greenland. That was going to be easy and over. The Ukraine war is not over. Putin's actually one of the big winners in this Iran war right now because he's getting a lot more money for his energy as this plays out. I could go on and on about all the things Donald Trump said would be done by now or would be easy to get done that are not done. And so you could have understanding of people when he says these things who, like your daughter, get alarmed, and it's not funny. It's not. Sometimes I think he may be joking. He may be just trying to advance the conversation, or to, I don't know if humor is the right word, because you're talking about potential military action. You're talking about other sovereign nations at the same time. But you can understand why people out there have angst or much worse.
John, I asked you this exact same question last week, and I'm going to ask it again because it's a week further into the chronology and a week closer to the midterm elections. If I were a Republican running for re-election, and a month ago, tariffs are struck down, so let me impose new tariffs. Let me invade whatever country I feel ready to invade with no plan and no explanation. And let me make sure that gas prices, which I used to excoriate Joe Biden for, even though they were lower than they are now for me, is center stage. And I got to run in the same party as this guy. There's got to be somebody who's saying to Donald Trump, you're croaking every one of your sycophantic supporters in Congress.
There are a lot of people who are sending warning signs to the White House that this gas prices, any more economic uncertainty, any disruption in the force, if you will, volatility economically, is only going to make the political climate worse. And to your point, gas prices right now are as high as they have been in 18 months. It might even be a little more than that, but that's what I saw when I looked this morning. There are a lot of people warning the White House that whether agree or disagree, good idea or bad idea, this military confrontation with Iran, and it's a war, they don't even want to use that term, it's a war, that the political fallout could be damning. That is one reason, Jim, actually a lot of Republicans took heart yesterday. They thought the president was getting the message when it did sound like in part of what he said, that this would be over soon, that he was looking for an off-ramp, looking to declare victory and go. And then you have, again, the whiplash back to where we are. But look, I must not have given you a very good answer last Tuesday, to the point, in the sense that you're going to keep asking me this every Tuesday through the election. We've started primary season now, and Republicans, Donald Trump has often defied political history and defied political gravity. However, I've been doing this for 40 years. And when you get to this, where we are on the calendar about now, it's certainly if we get past Easter and Passover and that, it gets very hard to change the dynamic. And Donald Trump right now is under 40% in public opinion polls. His party is under trouble. The House is gone, barring divine intervention. And there are a lot of Democrats who think we actually have a shot at the Senate. And I would say more importantly than that, I work in Washington, so everyone thinks control of Congress. There are a lot of other races out there where the Democratic Party has a lot of rebuilding to do in rural America, a lot of rebuilding to do south of the Mason-Dixon line in places like Tennessee. They won those 2 Senate seats in Georgia, a lot of local stuff to do in places like that. A lot of Democrats are suddenly feeling, and Republicans don't disagree with this, they don't talk about it publicly, that, you know what, there's a lot to be done out here, that there is this reaction against Donald Trump, reaction against what's happening in Washington, that's some Trump and some other, just bigger climate. That creates a lot of opportunity. And the Republicans see this, and they know they're getting to the point in the calendar where it gets hard to change.
Talking to John King from CNN.
One thing I wondered about, I thought one of the reasons we went into Venezuela, people said it was because Maduro annoyed Trump by making fun of him and dancing and mocking him all the time. I thought that was kind of crazy. But in any case, was the oil. So if oil prices are through the roof, I guess we didn't get oil from Venezuela like I thought we were going to?
or if that was going to help in some ways, you sort of like you had something that might benefit you over here again, whether you agree or disagree with the military action in Venezuela, and then you've gone over here and done something that's going to disrupt or damage all that. There are some Trump supporters out in the country who think we went to Venezuela because we're going to get the secrets about the 2020 election fraud. That's where they are. So there's a lot. I'm being flippant at a time when American warplanes and Navy ships are flying. I shouldn't be. But you're getting to a point where you're raising a question in the sense that if there was to be something gained from Venezuela, whether you agree or disagree with how it played out, certainly the Straits of Hormuz, the Middle East, Iran, all the Gulf states now under siege from Iranian drones. You're talking about a much bigger, much more consequential, both economically and geopolitically, action than you are in Venezuela.
John King, I've said this to you many times, and I know Marjorie has too. One of the things I admire most about you is no one we have ever dealt with in our 27 years on air shows more respect for ordinary people who decide to provide a service to the public, often at great sacrifice. And I have to say, I thought of you the other night when I heard the story for the first time about the plaque honoring law enforcement people at the Capitol for their work on January 6th, which Mike Johnson decided to bury, and then finally emerged in the Senate. And I said, this is great, until I read that it was unveiled, or at least put up at 4 a.m. in the morning to ensure that no one would even see it happening. What was your reaction when you heard about this the other day?
I'm grateful it's there. We could have a lot of conversations and get really anxious about the disrespect shown by, again, take the parties out of it, take the names out of it, the disrespect shown by leaders of our government, the people at home can figure out who they are and what party they belong to not just honor these heroes, to not honor these people who risked their lives to defend that building, which was defending our democracy. That was not an attack on a building. It was an attack on a democracy. That was an attack on a legitimate election in an effort to overturn or at least delay the certification of that election. So yes, those heroes deserved a ceremony. Those heroes deserve more than they have got right now. But the plaque that should have been there a long time ago is there today. So I'm going to celebrate a little victory.
I know you enough to know, and I know Marjorie very well, are not the same kind of vindictive person that I occasionally am. I'll tell you, if I were one of those law enforcement people who've been so disrespected, and what I have to do for a living is ensure the safety of the 50% plus in the Congress who have chosen to ignore the threat that I lived through, the deaths that ended up happening, the trauma, the injury. I don't even know how they go to work. I'm sure you know plenty. I don't know how they go to work every day and do what they have to do when they have to protect somebody who has demonstrated that they don't give a damn about them unless Donald Trump tells them to. That is so hard, John King.
Well, I'll give you what I think is the most simple, basic answer, and it's the most honorable answer, that when they put their hand on the Bible and take an oath, they mean what they say.
I know that, John. You're totally right, and that's why they're as amazing as they are. We're talking to John King.
So, John King, there's lots of concern about the legitimacy of the upcoming elections, because Trump seems to be doing all these things to undermine them, and his latest is saying he won't sign any other legislation into law until Congress passes this strict proof of citizenship voting bill, and he says he also wants to end voting by mail, which I think is very popular in a lot of parts of the country. So what's this about?
The Constitution of these United States, it's a relatively important document, I think, into sort of how we do things, says that the states control their elections. The states shall regulate their elections. That doesn't mean there aren't some federal roles. It doesn't mean the courts haven't been involved for things like the Voting Rights Act, Women's Rights to Vote, Civil Rights Act, things like that. But in terms of the mechanics of voting, what mail ballots, for example, states decide that. And as someone, again, who's done this for 40 years, this is one of the most frustrating conversations in the world. Mail-in voting, go to Washington State. It was done by Republicans first. A Republican Secretary of State for more than a decade in recent history. It works. It works, and the incidence of fraud is minute. It is verifiable. To the point where he says he won't pass any legislation, he also says he's withholding his endorsement in the Texas Senate runoff until he wants John Cornyn to, I guess, promise that he'll do whatever he can to get that through the Senate. He's only hurting himself. They don't have the votes in the Senate to pass that legislation. If they wanted to come back with some reasonable compromise, could they get Democrats? There are some Democrats who support some voter ID or voter ID with some exceptions. It's not an obscene conversation to have, how do we certify elections, and can some form of voter ID or some process if you don't have an ID? We should be able to have adult conversations about anything, but that's not what this is. This is Donald Trump trying to take out grievances that he has that have no factual foundation, including the subpoenas this week for the Arizona audit. That Arizona audit, by the way, conducted by people loyal to Donald Trump, the Republicans, found out he lost and actually stretched the margin that he lost by a few votes.
But you're listening to John King on BPR, on GBH and NEPM. Sorry, Marjorie.
But I've heard many times before. The states under the Constitution run elections, and the Constitution, et cetera, and laws and all that. But I'm not encouraged, because he's violated the Constitution in so many areas. You think of ICE and all the law breaking that's going on with ICE and ignoring court orders and all that lawlessness there. So why should we think that the Constitution is going to prevent this?
I get it. I get it. So as you guys know, because we've been doing this for years, I try very hard not to get into hypotheticals and not to get too far over my skis. Certainly, I understand the people who are preparing for Donald Trump to either maybe send the National Guard or ICE or somebody else out to polling places to intimidate people in key areas. There are people preparing for that. We've seen no direct evidence it will happen. There are a lot of people who think that if the Republicans lose the election, that he's going to lean on Speaker Johnson to not seat the Democrats, that we're going to have another verse, sort of the congressional version of January 6th, say don't seat the Democrats, because he'll announce some huge Justice Department investigation into alleged fraud and say until that investigation is over. I could go on and on and on about the scenarios that Democrats, but also just election organizations that tend to be more bipartisan, secretaries of state who tend for years to be bipartisan, are preparing for. And I don't blame them for preparing it. You're absolutely right, because you have seen whether it's what he says about elections that's simply not true, completely untrue about 2020 and beyond, or some of the other steps that have been beyond what many people believe and some of the courts have said, or beyond the limits of the Constitution and limits of power. I understand people preparing for it, and I have to prepare for it back here for counting votes on election night and what comes next. My training is to say, prepare for that, study all that, but stay where we are today. And as of today, there's an election scheduled in November, a lot of very important primaries between now and then. And here we go. And like I said at the beginning, the climate right now for Republicans is horrible, which is one of the reasons, Marjorie, people who think like you are saying we better be ready, because the climate is so horrible, he's going to try to do something. I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not. But we'll watch that play out.
We only have 20 seconds, but in case you haven't heard this all the way down in Washington, I wanted you to know Jason Tatum is back. You haven't heard that, I assume. Did you know that, John King?
I've been watching it. It's great to see, and the mobility looks good. I just hope he hasn't rushed it, but so far so good, and I hope they can figure this out and maybe surprise us with a good playoff run before we yield to the Red Sox.
So do we all.
John,
hey, John, it's wonderful to see you. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have been speaking with CNN's Chief National Correspondent, John King. He's been behind the great reporting project all over the map. Coming up after this quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. She's going to talk about the oil crisis impacting Massachusetts, whether or not we're up to host the FIFA World Cup here, and a bunch of other great stories. Shirley Leung from the Globe is next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Tim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This year, we're getting to know each of the 26 gateway cities in Massachusetts, calling it 26 in 26. I'm Trajan Warren, and if you're in Chelsea, Everett, Lowell, Barnstable, New Bedford, or Fall River, I want to hear from you. What issues matter most? What concerns do you have? What are you proud about in your neighborhood? Reach out to me. Visit gbhnews.org/gateway cities and fill out our questionnaire. That's gbhnews.org/gateway cities.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Boston Ballet, presenting The Dream, a program pairing Frederick Ashton's Shakespeare-inspired ballet and a dynamic world premiere by emerging choreographer Michael Stromae. Opens March 19th. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, Massachusetts, currently displaying the Duxbury Art Association Winter Juried Show, prints by Armin Landek and works by Massachusetts artist Mo Kelman. More at artcomplex.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor Wu will be here in about 15 minutes for an hour of Ask the Mayor. We're joined now at the library by Shirley Leung. Shirley is Boston Globe business columnist and host of the Say More podcast. Hey, Shirley.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Hi. Shirley, so I read where because we don't refine oil here that things are worse for us, especially for diesel fuel people. So what's the state of affairs?
Well, oil has been bouncing up and down since the Iranian war, and when it goes over $100 a barrel, it's bad news for us here, and especially with heating oil, it's so expensive. At least it's the end of the season,
yeah.
So not a lot of people are getting new shipments, but some are. I mean, we quoted someone who last month paid $400, right, for heating oil, and now it's $900. It did not expect it to double in that amount of time. I mean, I've seen everybody's seen the gas prices climb, by leaps and bounds, and we've been kind of spoiled, right? We've been used to gas being well under $3 a gallon, maybe even under $2.50 a gallon, and so, Jim and I, we all have hybrids now, right?
I have a hybrid. He has an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I have an EV and a plug-in hybrid. And I've only owned these cars for 2 years, and it's the first time where I'm like, wow,
they make a big difference.
It makes a big difference now
huge.
with gas going up.
Yeah,
but it affects everything. I mean, the point that Marjorie made, which I was unaware of until I read the Globe story, is because we don't do any refining here. That part I knew, and everything's got to be trucked in.
Right.
This is the part I didn't know. The diesel fuel has gone up even more dramatically than regular gasoline has, which means that every business, every government, we're going to talk to Mayor Wu about it, everybody's affected negatively, obviously.
Whether it's school buses, right, who depend on diesel, it's whether our goods, right, our goods are trucked in. So maybe they'll hold off on raising costs. I mean, some of us are already starting to do summer vacation planning, and I'm wondering, maybe I need to buy my airplane tickets now before jet fuel skyrockets.
Well, we should end this topic by quoting our fearless leader, short-term pain for long-term gain, and then capital letters, only fools think differently, says Donald Trump.
So, Shirley,
only fools think
I'm dying to talk to you about this column. You did an interview with this billionaire investor, commercial real estate investor, who is basically saying too many rules, too many houses in Boston. Now that we're trying to build affordable housing, screw Boston is the way this came across to me. So I was enraged by the end of this column. So set me straight or not.
So Jeff Canny is a CEO. He runs a pension investment fund basically, and from union workers, and it's money pulled from across the country. And so and one of the things you hear from developers in Boston, they said we're not moving forward with our projects, and they blame their investors. And so it's been very hard to get institutional investors to talk. So I found one who is willing to talk, and I was a little surprised by what he told me, that some of these rules that Mayor Wu has enacted, I'm sure you'll talk to her about it when she's on next, that it's affected whether or not they decide to continue investing in Boston.
Like what?
Has invested billions of dollars in Boston. Restrictions on, she's raised affordable housing requirements. Yeah. She's instituted higher energy efficiency requirements. He says, he already knows, I think he's based in D.C., he's based somewhere else. He's like, I can tell, I know from the developers that she doesn't roll out the red carpet for us. And I tend to go to cities where it's more friendlier. And he's like, a lot of cities don't realize I'm looking at 25 other cities I can invest in. I'm going to go to cities that welcome me. Now, one of the things that I was, pushed back on was, a lot of these projects that are permitted in Boston that are not going forward right now, a lot of them were permitted under old rules, under Mayor Walsh, where these new rules don't apply. Now, when you talk to Mayor Wu and her team will say it's market conditions.
Yeah.
It's high interest rates, it's the high cost of tariffs, high cost of construction. That's why these projects aren't moving forward. They can't pencil out. But at the same time, in other cities, they are moving forward. I mean, that's what you hear in other developers. Like they're saying there is capital flowing to San Francisco again. There is capital flowing to D.C.
But he seems to be saying, to borrow from what Marjorie was describing, he seemed to be saying to me, too much focus on affordability and the environment here.
Yeah.
So focus less on the environment and less on affordability, and I can invest here. And it's sort of, I think Mayor Wu probably decided, you got to decide what you believe in.
Exactly. And so that's her decision. But at some point when you don't have projects moving forward, the economy is slowing, you kind of need something. And someone has to, and it could be, I've always thought that it will, what will it take? Maybe there is a moratorium on some of the restrictions she's put in place. But again, a lot of the projects that are permanent, they don't apply, so they must be looking for another incentive to get these projects moving.
He didn't say he was not doing business because of the millionaire's tax.
No, he did not say that. He was very concerned about rent control passing.
I saw that, yeah.
You know what I wonder? Mayor Wu has been very courageous about standing up to Donald Trump. She's also an Asian woman. I wonder how much that factors into people. There's a certain racism and discrimination factor that I wonder about.
I don't know. I don't know. They look at the numbers, know.
I'm not saying this guy necessarily, but they don't like her.
They don't like her, but they also don't like New York City Mayor Mamdani
well,
either.
same
and
thing.
So they're also hitting the pause button on
So
some
if you
of the
stand up
there.
for working class and poor people, then you're out, I guess is the bottom line.
Well, the thing is that if the money flows, then it does put more people at work. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Right now we're just at the beginning of maybe over the last year where projects have really construction has really started to slow down, and so the big projects, I should say, there are lots of tiny projects moving ahead right now.
Okay, so there is a fabulous piece in the Globe this morning by, I may mispronounce the first name, Chris Serres. Serres.
Oh my God.
Sean Cotter and Michael Silverman. The headline of which is Boston ready to host, meaning FIFA? And I'd say the one-word answer is no, it is not ready. We spent a lot of time the other day praising with Trenny Casey the courageous 5 selectmen in Foxborough who say, and I'm putting words in their mouth, but not really, we care more about the taxpayers of Foxborough than we do about the rich FIFA and the Crafts who want to stage this event. Pay us our money for security up front, and of course we'll grant licenses. Well, the trouble, according to this long piece, goes far deeper than whether an entertainment license is going to be granted. Is there the money for virtually anything? Does the committee have money? That money that they had, where have they spent it? The FIFA rules preclude going to a lot of sponsors. The 250th anniversary is competing for corporate money. This sounds like a disaster not waiting to happen, but happening.
Yes, it's been very difficult to raise money. I began writing about this in the fall, that they wanted to raise over $100 million, and they were only at like $25 million, and it seems like it's very, very slow to raise money now. A lot of the corporate sponsors potential corporate sponsors are also being asked to, support Tall Ships, which is coming this summer.
I forgot Tall Ships.
Also,
right.
America, the 250th anniversary. Part of it is that, there's not a lot. I think people don't trust, where is this money going? What will I get get for this money, and it seems like there's a lack of transparency from the Boston 26th, the committee, that there's dysfunction in that committee, that and I kind of have to tie it back to the Kraft family. I mean, they are a family not known for playing well with others, and so they kind of do their own thing, and so now, Bob Kraft, owner of the New England Revolution, was probably, he was the driving force bringing World Cup and making Boston one of the host cities again. And basically, I get the sense that other cities are proud of being a World Cup host, whether it's Kansas City or LA. They really want to show the world that we can hold these big events.
Well, you know what I learned in this story that surprised me? Dusty Rhodes was quoted. She's a big event, convention. I think she's an adventurous.
And she's doing tall ships.
Ships, and she's been a big event organizer for years. Is that FIFA has this deal where, like, Bank of America, the national bank, gets to be the sponsor, and all the local and regional people, like Eastern Bank, they have no opportunities. So that's a problem. Yeah, and they've known
that for a while, So if you think about it, some of the banks can't get in, even Gillette or Procter & Gamble, because Unilever is the big FIFA sponsor, Or here we have, think about New Balance. They probably will struggle because I think Adidas is the big sponsor for FIFA. And so there are a lot of conflicts. But, I think there was a plan for a workaround. Maybe you could I think there was an effort to create a different entity. Maybe the money doesn't get funneled into the official FIFA Fan Fest. Maybe it gets funneled to something else related to.
So is this going to be smaller scale, or is this whole thing going to fall apart?
No. I think my sense is we will definitely be a World Cup host city. I don't think it'll be like the Olympics where we were awarded the Olympics and then it was taken away.
But could you explain what we asked the other day? Why is Kraft Group, or whatever the hell it's called, why are they not just writing a $7.8 million check like tonight?
Right.
Today to town of Foxborough?
Right. I don't know. That's a really good question.
And how about the federal money? Is that Trump or is it somebody else?
It is Trump, and some of the money is
because we need $23 million.
It's not just federal money here. By the way, you're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. The federal money problem is all over the place.
Yeah, it's all right. So everybody's waiting for security money.
He likes soccer. Why is Trump?
And he
doing
likes
this?
FIFA. FIFA gave him a peace award.
So why is he not handing out the money?
I don't know. Maybe he's too busy going to war with Iran. Who knows?
Okay.
Okay, this is a story that Marjorie is waiting for, written by your colleagues.
Well, yeah. This is one of the craziest things I've ever read about this pottery studio that's right down there on Newbury Street. I guess it's the kids go there for parties, and people, they called it a crochet bedecked studio where 20-something patrons indulge their inner artist, etc. But it seems like not everybody, but many people who go in there, or the neighbors, wound up in court or with restraining orders. What is going on at this
I don't know
store?
What's going on. It is one of the craziest stories I've ever read. I think the owner is like a reality TV star as well.
She was.
She was a show Big Brother. She was on one-time contestant on there.
And it started out on, there was a TikTok. There was a video of, I guess, someone who was walking down Newbury Street, was asked on a date by an employee of this studio, and then she turns out like, oh, this guy has an unsavory past, and then
he's a sex offender,
registry, and it's like, why is he working at this, at the Rainbow Pottery Studio, where I think there's a lot of kids and a lot of, women probably there, and so there's all sorts of questions, and then it turns out the owner's been suing, customers, or gotten to fights, and even with her fellow business owners who are neighbors. So, and then she's going to open another store, I think, in Nantucket, right?
In Nantucket. Here's a good one. This person named Madison Parrott celebrating her 26th birthday there with her boyfriend, and she claims Carol, the owner, verbally berate an employee, and she went to the employee and said, no one has a right to speak to you that way. And then Parrott's boyfriend says, who made the reservation, texted Carol after she got in a dispute with the girlfriend, And Carol responded with text of her own, which parents shared with the Globe. Does your prostitute need a box of tissues? Calling the girlfriend a prostitute. Let me guess, your favorite position is missionary. I mean, she texted these things and then sent a threatening rebuke on top of this.
Right. No, it's incredible. I mean, I'm surprised that it's taken so long for this to kind of blow up, But it we followed the story from TikTok, and then now it's kind of, created a life of its own right now.
Who, in all fairness, by the way, it's Janelle Nanos and Dana Gerber who wrote this piece.
Great
in all
story.
fairness, a lot of small business owners text their customers and say, is your favorite position missionary? Don't you? I mean, is that unusual? Do you think that's that unusual?
Yeah, I know. The anecdotes in this story are unbelievable. By the guy that runs a salon across the street, he's had a number of expletive fill-in run-ins with her. First came in August 24 when, according to an affidavit, he saw the owner of the place hit a parked car, then start yelling at another driver, a Mexican woman, to, quote, get out of my country.
And is this the one where he...
homophobic slurs are all over the place.
And he doesn't... Is this the one where he doesn't want to make eye contact with her anymore, so he closes the blinds?
He closed the blinds, yeah.
He closed the blinds. He said he's like a hostage in his own studio now.
By the way, if anybody listening or watching this show or somebody here really wants to know what kind of person is Shirley Leung, what kind of person is Marjorie Egan, notice the enthusiasm with which Marjorie approaches this story while Shirley stands here with her head in her hands, hoping there aren't going to be any more questions about, what's the name of this joint? The Rainbow Lounge, or what is it again?
Pottery Studio.
Rainbow Pottery
Studio. It's not a lounge, Jim. It's a kid-friendly crochet bedecked studio where 20-something patrons indulge their inner artist.
And Marjorie,
yes.
What you'll find really surprising about the story is that the owner sat down for an interview.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
That's right.
That is a very good point.
Because I was thinking, I remember looking at this like, wow, we got these great photos of the studio, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe the photographer had to go from the outside. It's like, no, we were let in. She sat down for an interview, which as you know is always better. It's always if you're going to be a target of a story, it's always better to sit down with us.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, she came out great out of this.
To fix things. Okay.
No, but I'm with you. Answer the question and then bury yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Rainbow. What's it called? Rainbow. No, if you need a pot or something to pee in or whatever.
No, you're right. If you go to McDonald's or you go to Starbucks, you go wherever it is, you expect to be.
What position is your favorite, little boy?
Oh, jeez.
Sorry. Okay, we're done.
We've been speaking with Shirley Leung, Boston Globe business columnist, host of the Say More podcast. Thank you very much, Shirley. Well, I've never heard anything like it in my life. We say goodbye to those of you listening on
Shirley has a great column about the Boston Garden and the TD Garden, too, which we didn't have time for. Check it out in the
store.
Globe.
That was a great one, too. We ran out of time. Okay. Thank you, Shirley. The show keeps going here in Boston. And Michelle Wu is going to be here with us for the rest of the hour, taking our questions and yours at the Boston Public Library. This is Boston Public Radio and GBH and NEPM, and we are at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support GBH and unlock the best of NPR and PBS, all bundled in one. With the GBH Super Bundle, you'll get NPR Plus and GBH Passport. So give a little, get a lot in return. Learn more at gbh.org/superbundle.
Funding for our programs comes from you and MIT Federal Credit Union, committed to delivering financial services that help members bank with confidence. Membership's open to the public. More at mitfcu.org. Federally and Compass on the Bay, an assisted living community in South Boston for those with Alzheimer's and related dementias, with research-based therapeutic programming for those with memory loss. More at compassonthebay.com.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, new research shows the U.S. bird population on the decline. But folks at Mass Audubon say it's not all foul news for our feathered friends. And speaking of things that chirp, as Jason Tatum returns to the parquet floor, one researcher has finally solved the science behind sneaker squeak. That's the Curiosity Desk, today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are back, finally, at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And we want to thank everybody who did all the work to make the studio working today. We love our new microphones and everything else. The Attorney General will be with us on March 25th at 11 at the library, as well on, well, not that day, 27th of March, the Governor, Maura Healey, both at the library, and Healey will also be here at 11 o'clock. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. It's time now for the March edition of Ask the Mayor. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is joining us. Mayor Wu, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
If you have a question for the mayor, I'm sorry. Did you say something?
I said these are nice new headsets.
They are very
Aren't
nice.
they nice?
You like them.
It's part of our new upgrade.
It is.
Yes.
If you have a question for the mayor, you can come find one of our colleagues, Zoe or Ronan, sitting right over there, or you can text or call at 877-301-8970.
So, Madam Mayor, I know you just came from an immigrant event. What was this? What happened? What was it?
We shared some news about a new public-private partnership that is standing up. Unfortunately, one more way that we're having to really tap into all of the incredible leadership and support for our immigrant neighbors in our community facing tremendous stress and threats. City Councilor Ruti Louijen and the Barr Foundation, the Boston Foundation, and the United Way of Mass Bay all stood together with the city. We have a little over $1 million that has been seeded in the city budget from this current fiscal year directly for legal services and other supports. And our philanthropic partners have now shared that they're standing up a new effort as well that will seed another $3 million with an ask for the community to be involved. This is, as was described this morning, a drop in the bucket in terms of the need and the scale of challenge that we're experiencing. But another example of Boston trying to do whatever we possibly can to be there.
Speaking of things that cost money, how are we faring, Boston being we, in the light of the huge increase in gas and oil prices over the last 10 days?
It's one thing after another. And in some ways, that's why efforts like this to fill in the gaps when a completely unexpected development happens at the federal, or in this case, even international level, that makes budgets even harder to work. And so we have been working closely with our seniors and our Age Strong Commission. We now do a full sort of checkup, and you can come and get every possible discount or subsidy or affordability benefit that you are entitled to, and people will review everything from energy costs to cable discounts to property tax work-off and other senior tax break opportunities. And we're also trying to put resources directly into the community so that we can support those who are doing the work and keeping roofs over people's head and food on the table.
But it affects the cost of doing business for the city as well, not just the impact it's having on individuals and families, right?
This will show up in everything from school bus budgets, and we haven't completely transitioned the fleet away. We're trying to go and add more electric vehicles to our fleet wherever we can, partially for this purpose, because over the long run it saves money. It is budgets for city buildings. It is the cost of construction and projects now that we're close to getting over the financing gap, now sent back to the drawing board. And so it's quite a lot.
Let's stay on money for a second. By the way, our number is 877-301-8970. We just mentioned to Shirley Leung from the Globe a story in her newspaper today, Is Boston Ready to Host, which is this series of nightmares, in my opinion, about the preparation or lack of for FIFA World Cup coming to Boston. I mean, there's so many. I just want your reaction to this about whether or not we're going to make it. But you read this: how much has the committee raised? Where is the money gone? What's your reaction to the story? Are you worried about the preparation for this event that is almost right around the corner?
We're less than 100 days out, and it is a huge endeavor. And I know the scale of what will be doing this summer, FIFA is a big part of it, but it's only one of multiple other huge initiatives. So on the part of the City of Boston, we're focusing on making sure all of the infrastructure, the safety planning, the transportation, that our streets and sidewalks can look sparkling, and that we'll have the capacity to be able to manage and move people around, get them not just downtown, but into the neighborhoods. And so we're working with our local Main Streets organizations and small businesses to identify those businesses, whether it's a restaurant or a coffee shop or a cultural organization that it's going to have some special event connected to one of the teams playing, or just to have the games on in general. And then, of course, we are focused on FanFest on City Hall Plaza and doing everything we can so that will be smooth, welcoming, and an exciting opportunity.
Is it going to be
everyone.
smaller scale because of the FanFest, that is, because of the financial limitations to date?
So the city is working very closely to make sure that the structures and the all of the sort of environment and everything around it is set. The space itself has capacity with all of the security measures and all that are needed. The space has capacity for 5,000 people, so we will need overflow. And that's going to be potentially, whether it's on the Greenway or other spaces in the area, down to Faneuil Hall. There's a lot of coordination and a lot that we're still working with the committee on.
Do you know how much? I mean, I've read this thing. Do you have any idea how much this committee has raised and where all the money has gone? I mean, I would assume if anybody would know other than the head of the committee, it'd be you.
I don't have all that information. I know we have heard they continue to. There's been I think it's unfortunate that we are still at this point in time having conversations about how to figure out the funding and financing of it. It's a huge opportunity for the entire region and the Commonwealth. It's going to be a really important economic boost, a chance to show Boston off to the entire world, and to be a welcoming beacon at a time when the world needs those kinds of examples of freedom and progress and inclusion. We have a lot of work to do, and we at the city are going to step in and roll up our sleeves. We have been to do whatever it takes, find whatever resources are necessary to try to fill in gaps.
Did you mention the federal money? The $23 million?
No, I did not.
Yeah, because my understanding is you're waiting on $23 million from the federal government, as are 10 other cities that are doing this.
Yes.
So do we think that
we are counting on those funds? They absolutely need to get directly to cities. We are able, as a sort of larger city, to plan ahead a little bit more. I completely understand that some of our counterparts want to make sure that certainty is there. And that's really important at a time when the bigger picture is that municipal governments and city budgets everywhere are already under strain from healthcare costs going up and other needs. And so this is intended to boost our businesses, get people circulating in the economy, and will benefit from the tourism taxes and the economic activity that brings. But there is a lot of upfront work that needs to happen, and we are stepping in to try to do whatever we possibly can.
I have a couple more very quick ones on this, and I promise we'll move on. You seem much more frustrated than you're saying. Is that a fair description?
I feel like I'm in a
no, but
sitting in the chair.
You
in the
are. I mean, we get to stand 6 feet away from you once a month, and you are, aren't you?
It's just a once in a generation opportunity, and there are so many complicating factors that have affected planning, some of which I believe have been within the control of those on the ground. And obviously, looking back, there are always things that probably could have happened faster, or this or that. But there's also larger implications. Some of what's happened. Anyway, politics is very much a part of how an event like this is being perceived and being discussed around the world, and with different cities and their role in it. There have been now multiple direct attacks and potentially even illegal actions that have caused other countries to want to pull away from sending any of their tourist dollars to the United States. And so it just is an unnecessary moment of uncertainty because we're in a larger moment, and that makes the work all the more intense and all the more complex when we're trying to do it.
Okay, two last things. You know what happened in Foxborough. You're also somebody who's responsible for safeguarding the taxpayers' money. Do you endorse what they did and said, give us the money up front or we're not issuing an entertainment license?
Yes.
And last question, you worry about this is how this might affect the effort by the city to get the Democratic Convention in 2028?
We have hosted large-scale events before. FIFA is huge, and the combination of FIFA, Tall Ships, and the 250th will be the best showcase that there is for what the city can do. We've also specifically hosted a Democratic National Convention before, and a very important one at that. And so I think there are a lot of people who know exactly what they're doing involved in that effort and excited to make the case. There will be no better city following the 250th of our country to come remind the world what it means to actually be an American and to stand up for the values of freedom and belonging for everyone.
That's the voice of Michelle Wu. She'll be with us at the top of the hour, taking our questions and yours. 877-301-8970. Robert from Jamaica Plain, thank you very much for calling.
Hello, Robert.
You're on with the mayor.
Hi, Mayor Wu. My question is around the business district in the center of Jamaica Plain, and the fact that a number of businesses have been closing, and then we just see empty storefronts. And my understanding is that the rents are controlled by a few landlords, and they don't nobody seems to be incentivizing either the landlord or the businesses to open up. And I'm just curious, is there any thought to that? Because it's really starting to look like a ghost town in JP.
There is a really active and important Main Streets organization there, and our goal everywhere across the city is to try to find the right mix of businesses, other community uses that fill in the gaps for what a community needs, and also provides basically the idea is that in a city like Boston, you should be able to get everything that you need and feel welcome in any part of our city. But the hope is also that you wouldn't need to leave your home neighborhood to keep those dollars circulating or to access what you need as well. So I think there's a combination of, as you say, working with some private landlords. It's always complicated when property owners have the full choice of the market, right? That they can try to hold out, and sometimes there's a more lucrative lease for a longer term period than taking the risk on an incredible local entrepreneur and local small business. That's why we worked very closely with our local entrepreneurs. Had several programs, some of which were funded through federal dollars, and now we're trying to make the case for public-private partnerships to fill in the rest, but helping to come with funding for renovating the space so that can be part of what the tenant is able to do. Helping to make connections with those who are looking for a business or have an idea for a business but looking for a retail space, and keeping that database of where the vacancies are. When it comes to direct incentives, there have been different conversations in the past. One thing that we do is through our zoning code, really trying to make sure that there's ground floor retail where possible, activating the streetscape and making it available in new developments as well. And then where it already exists and you need that extra boost, it's difficult with the level of resources that we have, but have started to do things like creating a commercial acquisition fund and other initiatives so that our local small businesses can also move into the role of becoming property owners more and more as well.
Robert, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Our staff member, our producer Zoe, says that there are a lot of people who want to ask questions to BPL. Mike is just not going to be able to get to all of them. However, we're going to start with one. Louisa has a question about the Boston Centers for Youth and Families facility.
Hi, Louisa.
Hi, Louisa.
Hi, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm a little So thank you again for all your work. What we're trying to do is bring BCYF facilities that are in need of attention to your attention. So there's some that are amazing. They really are key additions to a neighborhood for the health and connectivity of the neighbors. However, for example, in our example, the BCYF Hennigan for 20 years has been really mismanaged, to the point the pool has been closed for 5 years. We had a meeting a year ago, 150 people in the neighborhood came, and we have an online petition with 400 plus people that signed, and yet we are struggling to get updates, to know if there's a date. It's a very overlooked neighborhood, our part of JP, not the southern part, our part. So my question to you is, now that, I don't know if you're aware of it, the mismanagement that happens in some facilities, and if you're not, now you know, what step can you take to ensure that all BCYF facilities are actually well serving the community?
Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you, Louisa, for raising the issue and for being involved enough to know our community centers. This was one of the biggest challenges that I got all the way down deep into as I came into office, is that you realize with limited budgets, both on the operating side for staff and the year-to-year annual expenses, and then the capital budget, which is for buildings and infrastructure and those kind of one-time renovations and improvements, that it's always easier when you have dollars to do something new and flashy and exciting that the community has been dreaming of. And in many cases, there have been many deferred and delayed dreams that need to be addressed. And at the same time, the city had not been, I think, acting like a real estate portfolio owner. That we not only have these buildings that provide services, but these are buildings that need money put aside every year, even if the roof seems okay right now, because at some point it's going to need replacing, and then you can't come up with all that chunk at one time if you haven't been kind of planning ahead for those kinds of facilities maintenance needs. And so there was a lot to dig out from. On the school side, most of all, I would say, just because of the sheer number of buildings that there are and how much more expensive it is to do one school building compared to some of our other facilities. And then BCYF centers, the pools especially as well, had been a real challenge. And there are some, I think it's something like 21 or 22 pools across our BCYF, and the ones that are connected to schools and therefore are technically under BPS authority. We have now either renovated or fixed up more than half of them over the last 4 years, or in the pipeline to do so, at a time when it was far, far fewer than that were even functional. And sometimes it's just you go in, you think it's going to be an easy fix, and then it turns out there's a real structural problem or a major leak from a crack in the pool shell that needs to be completely taken out and undone. I don't have the specifics on the Hennigan in my head right now, but I can try to see if the team can get them even while I'm here and update you afterwards, or if not, I'll get your information and follow up.
Lisa, thanks. By the way, we always show a bias towards the phone callers. There are a lot of people at the library have questions. Let's do that. By the way, the number, if you want to call or text, is 877-301-8970. I'm sorry, Marjorie.
Well, then let's take another question,
Let's do it.
We have Charlotte at the microphone here at the library. The question about rent prices.
Welcome.
Is Charlotte?
Hello.
Hi, Charlotte. Hello.
Hi. I'm now 75, but I moved into a 55 and older apartment about 10 years ago. 3 years after that, it was sold, and it became regular rental. For the first 3 years, rent went up like 3%, 5%. The last 3 years, rent is going up 10%, and that's significant when you're a senior. I mean, I have a retirement and Social Security. Rent has gone up like $150, $200. What can be done about it? Rent control is not the answer, okay? The last time that was mentioned, that was 5 years ago. What the owners are saying is they want to get everyone up to the market level, which is $3,000. We, as a Bostonian, seniors, we built this city. We made the neighborhoods what they are. When I was coming up, seniors had elderly housing that was dedicated. So what's happened to that? Why can't that? Why can't, there be some sort of a program or whatever for people over 55 or 60 who moved into, a residences because they were designated for seniors? There should be a special program for that.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for coming and for all that you have done for the city and continue to do. That's exactly right, and that's why with our housing goals, there's a special focus on making sure that we have senior buildings that are new construction as well as and any possible conversions. We've actually partnered either with the state or with community organizations in a couple instances to build new senior developments. It's not enough, and it doesn't meet the need, and we need to keep going at that. But senior housing is definitely something that I believe in, that we are working to try to make sure is standalone and its own priority, exactly for the reasons that you say. And also because there are many seniors who I've met who say, I raised my family in this larger home, or maybe even it's a multifamily, and I don't need that as much space anymore. I'd like to actually go to a senior building where I can be with community and sometimes have services, or sometimes just be in a more manageable apartment, and then that frees up the home for either a different family or for a different generation of the family. And so that's all part of the challenges that we have with our housing market. We need housing across the board of every type. We certainly need more affordable housing. We need more senior housing. We need more housing with multiple bedrooms for families with kids as well. And we need the resources to do it. So that's why we've been fighting for some state legislation that would provide more of those resources. And when we do have them, it's gone out, including to build more senior housing.
The one thing I'd amend that Charlotte mentioned is, there hasn't been talk of rent control in 5 years, she said, is we know there's a question that may end up on the ballot. You told us several months ago you'd likely sit it out. I'm putting words in your mouth, but not as you would have drafted it. That is what you said. Mm-hmm. Last month you told us if this is all that comes of rent control, this question, you'd vote for it. But I think what was implicit in that is the hope is the legislature does its job and meets with the proponents and others and tries to draft something that people like you and others would feel was more equitable without being too extreme. Is there any progress to report at all on either from you or anybody else you've dealt with in terms of whether Beacon Hill is trying to cut some sort of a compromise here or no?
I know that there are lots of conversations ongoing, so I certainly can't speak for the proponents or those who they're talking to. But I think what Ms. Charlotte brought up is the point of why something needs to be done as well. It's recognizing that there are market conditions, and there's the chance when we treat housing as a commodity that's bought and sold, and some people profit from it. There's always going to be pressure, and that pressure is really up to sometimes it's the goodness of the heart of landlords, sometimes it's business sense, sometimes it's other business interests, of whether that happens in a way that is reasonable at an amount that takes into account you need to have funding set aside for the upkeep of buildings, you need to have inflation and costs like that accounted for. But once it gets past a certain threshold, it is not possible for families to keep up, especially for seniors on a fixed income. And so that's why the proposal that the City of Boston had advanced years ago by a very wide majority of the City Council was crafted in a way that would encourage and support housing production and put guardrails on some of those thresholds. That's not what we see before us today, but it is a mechanism that would encourage legislative action to correct it.
You know, Mayor Wu, we just had Shirley Leung on. Something else we talked about with her that's relevant here is she interviewed this guy, this Jeff Canny, I think is how you say his name, and has invested billions of dollars into real estate projects around Boston. And he basically, the thrust of what he said was that he didn't like the accommodations for 17%, I think it's affordable housing, didn't like the environmental stuff. He said if rent control passes here or in Massachusetts, he's looking not to even deploy capital to Boston. So it sounded to me like, unless we're talking about luxury condos, he's out. And that means that other developers won't get the money to build their projects. This is kind of a difficult situation to be in.
I mean, I read that piece with interest, and one thing that jumped out at me though was there was a mention that because of sort of who the mayors were, and it's maybe loosely tied to the policies, maybe not.
Yeah, he's blaming you
in Boston.
He's blaming you,
and in New York.
Yep.
That therefore he was going to San Francisco instead. Where, by the way, they have higher taxes and costs already applied on everything. And that's not to say, I'm a fan of Mayor Lurie, and we've been talking a lot about ways that we can partner East Coast and West Coast on the innovation economy and making sure that this is a win-win across our cities. But that's not based in reality, that if you care only about costs, then you're going to make that choice versus this one. So that, everyone has their own political agenda and everyone runs their business how they see fit. And everyone also is trying to feed their family, and therefore, in the private sector, make those returns and earn those profits. But if the implication is that the only way the city of Boston can be a successful, competitive city is through a race to the bottom, where we go to the lowest standards for workers, for our climate safety, for our affordability for seniors like Miss Charlotte and for everyone else here, that is not what we are trying to do in Boston, and that is not what we are going to engage in. And so there are going to be some folks who will say, I'm going to try to find another community who will loosen standards or lower them, so-called roll out a red carpet. We have been taking every possible action to court those who believe in Boston's way of doing business, which is that we are the most stable investment you could have. We're not going to be a place where you can, probably squeeze out every possible dollar because of a willingness to erode this or that standard. But what you get for being involved in the city of Boston is access to the most talented workforce, access to a community that is engaged and supported, residents who, we are doing everything possible to help keep in stable living situations, and therefore families who can be thriving, and we have more to do every day. But compared to a lot of places, this is where we have a steady, good return, and we are open to business for everyone who believes in the future that we're trying to build here, and that future that will be grounded in the economy past this current period and beyond. So we're going to continue to engage, but I would just say the kind of, it's a little bit backhanded to both say that politics are a financial problem, but then also kind of not say things that are really based in financial realities. We have a AAA bond rating in the city of Boston. We are proud of how we manage our city, and it is not to be in the bubbles that will burst and have huge peaks and valleys and ride a roller coaster of, profits now and downturn later. We are here to make sure that our residents are protected, and therefore, by being the safest major city, the best schools in the country, this is the best investment for those who really care about quality of life and being in it for the long run.
We have to take a break, but before we do, I know I speak for Marjorie. One of the great treasures of this city is someone who's been on our show quite regularly through the years, the music director of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, Andres Nelsons. And I know I saw you with the Concert for the City when you played Mozart with Andres there, and it was a beautiful event. As you know, as well as anybody, the BSO has decided to terminate Andres's contract at the end of the 27 Tanglewood season. What's your reaction to the news?
I'm very sad to, I've only had a little bit of an opportunity to see Maestro Nelson's up close, but even just how kind he was, how thoughtful and connected he has been to the BSO musicians and to our city. He's a real treasure, and I don't know the ins and outs or the details of exactly what happens. Obviously there's a component where everyone's interests have to line up, and we don't know the sort of inner workings of where those interests were. But I am very grateful for all that he has done to build up the BSO and to continue this incredible legacy, and hope that that will only keep building with what's ahead.
Before you go, are you about to propose to one of us? Or
both of you, actually.
I accept. What is this?
So these are... they're replicas, but these are copies of a commemorative medal.
Oh, wow.
In recognition of this current moment. So these were given to George Washington by
Why don't you hold that up to the camera while you're talking, just so they can see it?
So it's dated, this is dated March 17, 2026, but it is a 250th anniversary commemorative medal, and a little bit of a replica with some edits made to the medal that the then Congress issued to General Washington after he successfully presided over the evacuation of the British from Boston next week, 250 years ago, March 17th.
Thank you. It's very kind. It's beautiful.
This is really cool, and it's very heavy. It's very heavy. Thank you very much, Mayor Wu. We're going to take a quick break, but Mayor Wu is going to be with us to the top of the hour. The number is 877-301-8970. We'll get to as many calls and texts as we can. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Nothing complicates a friendship like time, silence, and success. Sarbat Hassin's latest novel, Strange Girls, is all about that. Two writers grappling with their undefined relationship.
The relationship doesn't progress and become something else. If it doesn't change shape, but also doesn't lessen in its intensity, what happens to that?
I'm Juana Summers, the complicated nature of friendships on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Landvest Christie's International Real Estate, an independent brokerage representing residential and investment properties for buyers and sellers across New England and the Adirondacks since 1968. More at landvest.com. And Montserrat College of Art, offering lifelong learning opportunities. Programs include a BFA degree completion program, art classes, workshops, and professional development. More at montserrat.edu. And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where graduate students can build vital business skills through experience. Business Bootcamp Series, April 13th through 17th. northeastern.edu/business bootcamp. And Boston Ballet, presenting Winter Experience, featuring the return of Crystal Pite's celebrated This Season's Canon and Yorma Ello's timeless Le Sacre du Printemps. Now through March 15th at Citizens Opera House. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We are continuing our monthly edition. This is the March edition of Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. If you want to call her or text her, 877-301-8970. If you have a question and you're here, our colleague Zoe, with a hand raised, is right there. Mayor Wu, you wanted to update something about the medal.
I forgot the most important part of that, which is that the actual medal is here in the Boston Public Library. So it's in the special collections. Great. You can go see it. And I'm told what happened was at some point 60 Bostonians decided that Boston should have it, and they purchased it from a grand descendant nephew of George Washington's, and then presented it to the city of Boston during the country's centennial.
Wow. Okay.
877-301-8970.
So we just had a massive storm, and the Cambridge City Council voted on Monday to explore these options for creating this snow corps. Basically, I mean, the city would be responsible for shoveling sidewalks, which would probably be very expensive to do. But I don't know. I don't know how the sidewalks were in Boston. A lot of people don't shovel their sidewalks. Everybody's walking in the street. What do you think?
It is a very intensive and costly endeavor that we would be talking about, and one that, at this point, under the current Prop 2.5 and municipal finance system, is not possible for expansion. So we're talking about 800 miles of roadway and all the public sidewalks, the sort of sidewalks adjacent to public buildings and other publicly owned properties that the City of Boston helps with, as well as some places where we sort of jump in if it's a very important private property and hasn't happened. But then there's 1,400 miles of sidewalk on top of that, all residential. There are volunteer efforts that happen throughout the city. I joined some of them this last storm as well, but the speed at which it would happen, the amount, the cost, it's quite an endeavor to think through, and one that would not be possible under current budget situations.
Are you going to be part of the No Kings rally on March 28th?
I am not booked to, I do not know yet, but I am currently not scheduled to be.
877-301-8970.
Brenda in Roxbury, thank you for calling.
Hello, Brenda.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Madam Mayor, so I do have a question. As a homeowner and a resident in Roxbury, I've been to many community meetings in opposition of the proposed bus lane on Blue Hill Ave, as we would lose over 70% of our parking. Myself and other community members feel that it accommodates transient citizens, and many of us would like to know what else we can do to prevent this from happening, as we have to commute sometimes very far distances for work.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
So it's actually a bit of confusion, I think, about what was proposed as parking. It is nowhere near. There's actually very little loss of parking because Blue Hill Ave is so wide that moving the median and adding the priority for one of the most heavily transported buses, or one of the bus lines with the heaviest ridership, would actually not require losing parking in most places along the route. The challenge here is that the federal funding is tied to a design that was proposed initially, and we are now at almost $100 million of federal funding awarded. That is a very important investment that could be made in the community. So I know there are lots of conversations happening. We want to make sure that wherever we can, we are improving the experience for riders and for those who, many bus stops all up and down Blue Hill Ave where people are having to wait. I think there are some further discussions that are needed about how to ensure everybody's at the same understanding of what the facts are and what this would look like. We also have had a lot of feedback that communities along the route are very concerned about what this would mean for construction and the small businesses to have a change in where things are. And so all of that is still under review, and I know the City Council's been very active in talking about it. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that the initial reason why this was proposed, or actually, the effort decades ago and now this go around, is because there used to be rapid transit, public transportation running up and down Blue Hill Ave that allowed for the neighborhoods right along the corridor to better access downtown. And then in the era of urban renewal, it was ripped out to prioritize suburban and other drivers who needed to bypass our neighborhoods and get to the job centers. And so bus riders and those from the neighborhoods have had a much slower, much harder experience since then. So the initial intent was to restore what had already been there, which was a benefit and a way for our residents who live right in these neighborhoods to get where they need to go. But I hear that there's still a lot of concern and a lot of feedback. Parking, though, is not one place where it is not a 70% loss of parking or anything close to that. Speaking
of buses, will there still be free bus service on those 3 lines after June?
We're working with the MBTA, and I very much hope so.
Okay. Let's go to, is it Teresa? Are you here? Hi, Teresa. You want to go to the mic?
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Wu. My name is Teresa Rochelle. I'm a resident of Roxbury, and I'm very concerned about the overwhelming number of construction and development projects going on there, given that Roxbury has the highest rate of asthma. In addition to that, there's a lot of transit that's located in Roxbury that creates toxic air. And I would like to know, since our air as the BPA reported in the 110 News at Nubian Transit is an alarming hazardous rate of 5 1/4 packs of cigarettes. What is being done to address the needs and the safety and concerns of the residents and the people who have to commute there and live there?
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. It's great to see you. Nubian Station is one of the biggest transit hubs across the state, and it is a bus hub. So that means when our T-buses are still on gas, that has a huge impact for all the communities along the route. That is why converting to electric buses and finding other ways for the subway and light rail to be around is really, really important. We are in the process at the city level of trying to convert, for example, school buses, right? It is slow going. We have, even on our end, we have 700 vehicles and have relied on federal grants to get those purchases done of electric buses. But you hear right away from the bus drivers who are driving the electric buses, the kids who are on them, and the neighbors who are on those routes, it is a world of difference, both in terms of sound levels, the fumes and the exhaust and the pollution. And so it's directly about the health and well-being of our community members. We just launched a major initiative with the Boston Public Health Commission to try to end and eradicate cancer and particularly gaps that we see as one of the main disparities that are an obstacle to living a long, healthy, and supported life in Boston. We're doing more screenings now to try to make sure people have that information and can get treatment sooner. But a lot of it is also making sure that it's the healthiest environment possible for everyone to live in our city, and things like clean air, clean water are key to that. In terms of the construction point that you mentioned, I know it's disruptive to residents. We also hear all the time about how stressful it is because housing costs continue to go up and up and up, and we need more housing as well. So we always try to work thoughtfully with the neighbors and come to the right zoning and the right rules that make sense for each neighborhood, so that it doesn't have to be a drawn-out process. But overall, throughout the city, we need more housing. We need better ways for people to get around so that everyone, all the families, can enjoy the best quality of life.
Thanks for your question.
Mayor Wu, we have a text from a future voter. I hope I'm pronouncing your name as Cyan, Cyan. I'm not sure how you say it, but anyway, this kid is 11 years old from West Roxbury. Tragically, Cyan called at 12 on hold to ask his question to Mayor Wu about competitive swimming in Boston, but she got disconnected. They tried to call back again, but they couldn't get through, so the lines were busy. They wanted us to call back. This person wanted us to call back, which we can't do. So I think a lot of people have called about some competitive.
Is it the Flaherty pool?
I don't know. I didn't get, but apparently.
So it's the end of that? They don't even ask a question?
Yeah, they want to know about competitive swimming.
Oh,
apparently,
okay.
people a lot are calling about. Is there a competitive swimming kerfuffle I don't know about?
There's been. Actually, I should mention. We just hosted our first citywide Come One, Come All office hours event. It was really great. It was at the bowling building last week, a couple nights ago, and we had more than 300 people come.
Wow.
All the city departments were there, and we had tables of city team members taking issues one-on-one, things that we logged over 100 311 requests. We also printed out almost 70, a combination of birth certificates, marriage licenses, death certificates. It's just records that people could have at home, the official certified copies of them. And I did have a conversation about swimming there. So I wonder if it's connected
Flaherty
to there.
Pool. We believe it's the Flaherty Pool.
That our BCYF centers have been home to some additional programming as well. In this case, a club that meets that helps young people get into competitive swimming. So we're looking into it, and I don't have the answers yet, but we'll make sure to report back because I have the contact person of someone who's involved.
Mayor, well, a couple things about White Stadium, which we talk to you about quite frequently. Yesterday, we had people who are on the other side of the litigation that have been suing the city, the Emerald Necklace group and a representative who's part of that from the NAACP, and they said there were a bunch of questions you hadn't answered, and I thought the lawyer asked them very respectfully, and with respect, we're going to forward them to you. And there are things like they'd like in writing, for example, which seems pretty reasonable, what the schedule for the 2027 season for girls and boys soccer as well as football, so when they know when it's available. But here's the thing I'm hoping you can answer today. Andrew Zumblist, who's an economist at Smith College, who I think is one of the world's foremost experts on stadia and that sort of thing, says that the guaranteed maximum price contract, you read a piece in the Globe, you said is capped at 135, is actually not guaranteed maximum price because there'll be expected and unanticipated changes, enhancements, as there always are. And he writes, the mayor's not shared the GMP, guaranteed maximum price contract, with the public, so all the qualifying provisions are unknown. The final tab could easily be 10 or 20% above the price. Two quick things. One, will you share the contract? And two, are there provisions in the contract that protect the city from those, quote, enhancements and unanticipated changes?
Okay, so I want to touch on a couple parts, but just on the contract first. My understanding is that all of the city's contracts and documents are public record, so that should be public. I will double check to make sure with the team, but the lease that we have signed, the agreements, we've even had a Freedom of Information Act request for the documents, and we have already shared out the exact bidding document that showed how it added up to $135 million with the guaranteed maximum price contract as well. So that should be there, and everything we do as a city is public bidding, public procurement processes, and public records, so that shouldn't be an issue. The idea of whether this is the sort of 100% cap, there are always unforeseen circumstances with any construction project. What a GMP means is that the contractor cannot unilaterally say, you wanted me to do this task, and now I'm going to do it and then bill you for something higher than this amount. They can come to us in advance and say, this thing happened, whether unexpected natural disaster, I don't even know, unforeseen circumstance happened, and therefore you need to approve a change order. That the city would have to proactively and affirmatively vet whether we agree with that before anything would change in the pricing of it. But that could raise the price, and he says it could go 10 to 20%. Have you anticipated? So there are some contingencies built in already as part of all the budgets as well, but there's always a chance that something unexpected could happen, but this is the best possible protection legally, and it's bound in the contract already. There's always some amount that is cushion for situations that may come up. But that is the best protection that we can have. The one thing I wanted to mention about the conversation yesterday as well, in terms of legal language and contracts, I think there was some suggestion expressed that students wouldn't be able to use the field, or there's no guarantee, and we of course will have a schedule out. The schedule will say that BPS students use the field every single day. I mean, that is why we are doing this. Even when the pro soccer team is playing? Okay. Yes, and so it is written into the legal language of the lease and shared usage agreement, which it's posted on the city website. Everyone can look, if you look up White Stadium shared usage agreement, it's down to the level of detail where we even regulate when the team can start playing their games. They can't go earlier than a certain time because we need to reserve the entire morning through afternoon for a track meet or other events. So it is anticipated every day, including every season, including when school's not in session, even on a practice day or at a game day, at only up to 20 per year. If they make it all the way through to the finals, that there will still be BPS activities on top of that.
And when will they actually be able to play football games? That they were said till November. Is that incorrect?
Yeah. So so right now the situation is, or actually previously, right now we're in construction. Previously, the city has 7 football teams across BPS. 2 of them had White Stadium as their home field, and so they each had 5 games that they would play every year at White Stadium, and that was all the usage that we got out of White Stadium. What will happen now is that the field will not be available until after the soccer season is over, so it'll be end of season for football, but for the first time in well over a generation, it will be open to every single high school football team in BPS, and they will have much more use of the field. More games will be played there than had been overall before.
But not till November.
End of season. It depends when the soccer season wraps up. We're hoping they'll be successful as well, and it'll be that late into the fall, but that's not a guarantee either.
Okay.
Hey, well, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah,
we appreciate
thank you very, very much for coming in, Mayor Wu. We much appreciate it. We have been speaking with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. Thank you so much, and thank you for our medal, commemorative medal. This is very impressive, Jim. I can wear it on my neck.
They're quite lovely.
Tomorrow.
They really are beautiful.
Thanks to all of you who listened to another edition of Boston Public Radio and 89.7 GBH, and everybody who came down to see the show.
Thank you all for
at the
coming.
Boston Public Library, and of course to see the mayor down here. And keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or you can check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're going to be back here at the Boston Public Library with Alan Casey. He's the founder of City Year. He's going to talk about the importance of public service, but also tell us about this great plan he's got for kids right before they graduate from high school in
mandatory service.
In terms of, yes, that's right. Senator Ed Markey is going to zoom in. Harvard scholar Alex Green is going to be here on disability rights in America, and national security expert Juliette Kayyem.
Can I say 2 quick things also important about 2 people we're very fond of?
Yep.
Joanne Chang from Flowers, reopening Boston Common location today. And by the way, they have pretzels with mustard that are homemade there. And our friend Roger Berkowitz is opening today at Terminal A, Roger's Fish and Chips, and we wish them both luck.
We want to thank our crew here, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Ronan Keene. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Sandra Lopez Burke, and Juan Jose Cadena, plus everybody who helped fix up the broadcasting problems here, including Eddie Hickey, Sai Patel, Glenn Heath, and anybody else who chipped in, because the word is, Jim, we sound much better than we did before. Thanks to the host of the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Edgar B. Hurwick III and the Curiosity Desk starts right after we are done, and the Culture Show with Jaron Bowen starts at 2. He's going to talk with Shaina Taub about her Tony Award-winning Broadway musical, Suffs, if I pronounce that right, which is coming to Boston.
Yeah, it's in Suffragette.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
I'm Jim Browdy, by the way.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
See ya.
Suffs, as in Suffragette.
Bye.
See you later. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great afternoon.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's how-tos and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Brightbound. Careers aren't one size fits all. And Brightbound helps students as young as middle school identify their strengths and find careers that fit them just right. Learn more at BRITEbound.org. And Concord Park, a Volunteers of America senior community in Concord, Mass., offering seniors the privacy and independence of their own apartment home, as well as care and support to help meet their needs now and as they age. ConcordPark.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Hurwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, across the United States, bird populations are declining and fast. We'll talk with folks from Mass Audubon about what's going on and some success stories to learn from. Meanwhile, over at Harvard, one material scientist looked into why basketball sneakers squeak the way they do. Turns out, as fast as your average point guard moves, their shoes have them beat.
Each time, everything is stuck except where this pole is moving, and it moves at supersonic speed.
And for years, it was the stuff of urban legend. A statue in Jamaica Plain that would cry blood if you stared at it long enough. Today, the tears have dried, but the legend lives on. It's all ahead this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says today will be the most intense yet of the U.S. war against Iran.
The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever.
Today, Hegseth told reporters the U.S. has already won. Then he said the U.S. has not won enough and is determined to achieve total victory. NPR's Mara Liasson reports it is likely Iran's biggest objective right now is survival.
And to make the cost of continuing the war as high as possible for the U.S. and Israel, that means keeping the gas prices high, keeping the Straits of Hormuz strangled, if not closed. And the president did talk about that yesterday. He said he wants to keep the Straits of Hormuz open, and he might have military escorts for oil tankers through the Gulf.
NPR's Mara Liasson. Online, Trump threatened to attack Iran much harder if Tehran stopped the oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz. Ali Larijani, a top Iranian security official, threatened Trump, writing on X, "Be careful not to get eliminated yourself." Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was assassinated on the first day of the war. NPR's Ruth Sherlock is hearing different reactions to the war from Iranians who fled to neighboring Turkey.
Hotels in this Turkish town close to the border are filled with Iranians fleeing the bombardment. At breakfast, they talk politics. There are mixed feelings about ending this war now. A 26-year-old woman who asked NPR not to name her because she could be arrested if she returns to Iran for speaking to foreign media says, after the government killed many thousands of people during nationwide demonstrations in January, she can't imagine having to continue living under this regime.
We lost so many people that it's just so hard to go back. There's this hole in your heart.
And a mother with children who fled Tehran last night said she just wants the bombing to stop. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News, Van, Turkey.
It is Election Day in Georgia for a race to replace former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. President Trump has endorsed one candidate in the crowded field. Here's NPR's Stephen Fowler.
Greene resigned in January after a lengthy fallout with Trump over what, quote, America First conservatism actually means. That rift continues in the special election. Trump endorsed Clay Fuller, a district attorney who calls himself a MAGA warrior. But another high-profile Republican on the ballot is Colton Moore, one of the most conservative lawmakers in the state. Some voters in the district say he is more like Trump. More than a dozen candidates, Democrats, Republicans, and Independent and a Libertarian, are on the ballot. If nobody earns a majority, the top two, regardless of party, head to an April runoff. Stephen Fowler, NPR News, Atlanta.
The Dow is up 316 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Procter & Gamble, the parent company of Gillette, says that it has ended its search for a new Gillette corporate office and will instead build a new facility right next door to its current facility in South Boston. Several sources say P&G is set to invest $1 billion in its new headquarters, and business leaders applaud the news that the company would invest so heavily in the new space. They call it an important show of faith in the city's future, and at a time when the regional economy and construction in particular has been sluggish. In 2023, Procter & Gamble Gillette announced it would move manufacturing operations out of its longtime South Boston site to its Andover campus while finding a new place in the city neighborhood for its roughly 750 corporate and research workers. The Environmental League of Massachusetts has relaunched netzeroma.org, a website the organization calls a public accountability tool to track the state's laws calling for decreases in gas emissions by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. Amy Boyd-Rabin, the Environmental League's Vice President of Policy and Regulatory Affairs, released a statement saying climate implementation is unfolding across dozens of partnerships, agencies, and processes, making it nearly impossible to follow without a centralized resource. And netzeroma.org is that resource. Bruins host L.A. at the Garden tonight. Celtics on the road in San Antonio. Exhibition baseball. Red Sox hosting Detroit at Fort Myers. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Last month, the journal Science published some worrying research on the state of bird populations in North America. Scientists followed 122 bird species over a span of 34 years and found a worrying 47% exhibited, quote, significant decline, while another quarter showed, quote, accelerated decline. Now, before you lose heart and turn your radio dial in despair, we do have some guests with us who say there is also some cause for hope. From Mass Audubon, John Hebert and Lyra Brennan. John is the Director of Bird Conservation. Lyra is Director of Coastal Water Bird Program. John, Lyra, thanks for joining us and welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Happy to be here.
Okay, let's start at the start. 122 species over a span of 34 years are being followed. Can you give me a sense of like how many species writ large are there in North America? Is this a big percentage of the bird population when we talk about following 122 species?
Yeah, it's quite a large percentage of the population of our birds. More than a quarter of our species is represented, and it's through all the guilds of species: our forest birds, coastal birds, grassland birds, all the birds that we care about that are in Massachusetts each and every year are represented in this study.
And so what's happening here? Why do we have any sense? I assume we have some sense, at least, of what is causing this decline. So let's get into why we think we are seeing this kind of a decline, John.
Big driving force for this decline is the loss of habitat and how we're using the land and how we connect with nature is a big driving force for these declines. So losing habitat, for agriculture purposes, this study really harps on what we're doing with agriculture, intensification of agriculture, taking land, which in turn takes away habitat from our species. And how our urban expansion is also accelerated habitat loss, and which impacts what the birds are eating and where they can move and where they can find habitat to nest, forage, and sleep. All contributes to these declines that we've been seeing over decades.
When I think about, I look at the time frame here and I think about, okay, span of 34 years. This entire 34 years, at least in my head, comes kind of in the time span after which our sort of modern environmental movement, as we think of it, has happened, right? Things like the EPA have existed over the course of this entire time. I think in some ways we like to think, hey, over the last 34 years, we've gotten to, we've sort of gotten our heads at least around some of the problems in our environment, and yet we're seeing this decline over that time span. What do we make of that, Lyra?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I think in some ways the species that we work with along the coast have reaped the benefits of some of those that environmental progress. Things like the Wetland Protection Act, the species that we focus on along the coast that are actually seeing a slight increase have benefited from some of those landmark environmental pieces. But as John said, that doesn't mean that we're not still losing habitat, that we're not seeing the influence of heavy agriculture, of certain kinds of land use. So I think while we that movement and some of that progress, it doesn't necessarily mean that we've solved the problem of bird decline.
Can we dig a little bit into the agriculture piece? Because on the one hand, I hear you sort of say heavy agriculture. So let's define that. But part of me goes, well, I mean, if we're using the land for agriculture, then that's using nature as it was intended, and you're growing stuff there, so that's good land. Why is that not necessarily good for bird species?
Well, how this is defined is the industrialized agriculture. Yes, we need to eat. There's a lot of people. Agriculture is not a bad thing, but we've created these giant monocultures and using a lot of pesticides and insecticides. So the other plants, other habitat that used to be associated with farms and farmlands, the smaller farms, are now gone. And a lot more chemicals have been introduced to the landscape, which has killed a lot of our insect populations, which a lot of the species in this study have shown that the birds that are reliant on insects are declining a lot. So that's where this industrialized agriculture plus with chemicals into the landscape over the last decades has impacted birds.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking with John Hebert and Lyra Brennan about protecting bird populations. Can you obviously, I think kind of on its face, I think most people hear something like, hey, 122 bird species over 34 years and a big percentage of them are declining. Your initial reaction is going to be like, that's not good. But also, if you stop and think about it, really why, I'd love to talk about why birds in particular, why it is not good, more broadly speaking, that bird populations are declining. What about birds in particular should we be worried about here?
I think birds are really great indicators of how healthy our ecosystems are. So we know that when we see the decline of birds, that something's not right? Something's wrong. And we as human beings are part of this ecosystem, right? We rely on it as well. And so them acting as a canary in a coal mine should signal to us that something's off. And that also, poses a threat to us, right? And something that we should be concerned about and take note. And they're part of a very complex ecosystem. There are other species that interact with them, and so as a whole, it's telling us that something is not working, something is broken.
And we were talking about agriculture. I mean, largely speaking, are we seeing these declines across all habitats equally, or is it happening in different ways in different habitats? I mean, you think about across this country, there are obviously we have mountains, we have plains, we have coastal regions. Are we doing better in any one place than we are in some of the others?
This study points out that forest birds have been doing better than others.
Okay, there's one positive note. All right, forest birds.
We protect forests. It's not to say, and you mentioned earlier, we made progress. The EPA, there's been regulations, but it's not. Forest birds have been doing okay, but not to turn your back on them and ignore them. But other species, grassland birds have taken a really big hit. The study points out towns and shrubland habitat birds that rely on early successional forest, young forest. Those types of species have declined in our region.
Lyra, I want to talk about the coast and coastal birds because, first of all, we're in Massachusetts and everybody loves the coast of Massachusetts and we love the birds on the coast of Massachusetts, and also because you are the director of Coastal Water and Bird Program, so that makes me think you probably know a little bit about what's going on with the birds on the coast here.
We would hope so, right? Well, it is a bright spot here in Massachusetts because the species that we're focused on, catchers, which are a large charismatic shorebird, and even least terns, all of these species are doing relatively well in Massachusetts. So we're really, really proud of that. There's been an incredible amount of effort going into protecting and managing these species, especially piping plovers and terns, which are both listed. We can't rest just yet, as John said, because they're not necessarily doing well in the rest of their range along the Atlantic coast. American oyster catchers are doing okay nationally, but it's something that we're feeling really positive about, and we're showing that by taking some of these steps, we can see some recovery of certain species.
Why do we have a sense of why they're not doing as well in other places in their, along the coast in their habitat as they are here in Massachusetts?
There are a lot of knowledge gaps. For piping plovers in particular, we have some information and then some research that we're really excited to complete and understand. One theory is that here in Massachusetts, our foraging is really great for this species. They have no shortage of food, and there are some questions about foraging ability and foraging grounds across other parts of their range. For example, here in Massachusetts, piping plovers may just need that crashing wave, high energy beach, and they're fine. They have enough food. But in other states, they might need that quiet bay, backwater, tidal flat, and not have access to it. So that's just one among many pieces that we're looking at and trying to understand the success of the species here in the state and New England.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking with John Hebert and Lyra Brennan about protecting bird populations. John, what can we do? We hear these numbers. If I see these numbers and I think, holy smoke, we got to do something. Then what? Then, what can one single person do? What can we collectively do?
Yeah, and I think hope's a good thing. The birds are still here. They're not gone. And until they're gone, we can still work together and recover our species collectively. Thinking about, there's a lot in this study that we're talking about. They talk about climate change. And it's broader on a global scale, but it's good to think about locally what you're doing in your own yard. Are you putting chemicals on your yard? Are you trying to kill insects? And think about the reasons why you're doing that and the impacts it has. What is your neighborhood doing in your local parks? Are you thinking about your nature, the insects, the birds, and really protecting insects? And if you protect insects, protect birds, it has a really cascading effect. In a positive way.
Can we talk a little bit about the role of insects here and just kind of put a fine point on it? Because I think, the sell of, hey, aren't those birds beautiful and they sound beautiful, like we should protect the birds. People are like, heck yeah. When you tell people, and we should also be protecting insects, feels like maybe a little bit harder of a sell, maybe not as universally loved.
Yeah, well, the insects are the food. The birds need to eat. And without their food, the birds aren't around. They eat fruit, so having trees and shrubs that produce fruit, but also that, think about what the birds eat, what you eat. They can't go to the grocery store. They have to go and find what's going on in your yard.
Sometimes I see pigeons in the grocery store, so some of them can go to the grocery store.
Those house sparrows are but those are one species that have declined in this study.
Really?
And then they're not native, but it's still concerning. Those species that are tied to humans and can adapt easily, they're declining. So that's one of those concerns. But working together, thinking about how we can protect our nature, our natural resources together locally, and build that up to a global effort.
One of the things I think I hear over and over again in talking to experts in whatever their field, if it's one where action is required, step one is often awareness or connection or getting people interested. When it comes to birds, Lyra, how can we get people interested in this issue? How can we personally feel more connected to the birds around us?
I think it's simple, but stepping outside, right? It's been proven, as you're saying, time and time again, that being outside is good for us. Hearing birdsong is good for us. It has demonstrative positive impacts on our mental health, on our physical health. And in my experience, being able to look at a just hatched piping plover running around the beach here in Massachusetts when you're vacationing, whether you live on the coast, just something as small as that can click to see these birds as incredible creatures that we really have a huge privilege to get to witness in the time that we're here and the time that they're visiting us. So it comes down to awareness, but you have to take that first step of either going outside or enjoying a program and going out maybe outside your normal routine just to experience the incredible diversity of birds that we have here in Massachusetts, especially coming into May, coming into the spring. We're really going into peak migration in just a few months.
Okay, now we've got two bird experts with us here, and we got a YouTube commenter. So I want one or both of you to address this one. They say every year birds try to chirp at my house to nest. They try to nest at their house. This commenter likes them, but not for roommates. So when it comes to, maybe I like hearing the birds, or I like seeing the birds when I'm taking a walk in the woods, but I don't want them nesting at my house, or I don't want them chirping at 4:30 in the morning right outside of my window. Make the case that they they should also still care about birds?
Yeah, well, testosterone is a strong hormone for these male birds that he's likely hearing. You get a lot of.
So remember, it's just guys being guys, right?
Guys being guys.
Okay, so that's one valid argument, I guess.
And another could be to set up, think about bird boxes, think about providing habitat, as John said. So if you have a great shrub in your yard, native plants, if you have a cool bird box that you get at your local bird store, maybe that would encourage that bird to use habitat instead of relying on a home or a house or a gutter or a lamp on your deck. Things like that.
Real quick before I let you go, I'm very curious about the role of technology in the world of connecting with birds, which is to say things like apps where you can identify, a bird song and it'll tell you what species it is. Or for those who are already into the birding thing or getting into the birding thing, there are apps that allow you to sort of track your progress in a way that we haven't seen before. Have you seen the impact? Has it been a good thing for people's awareness and connection with birds?
I think absolutely, and I'll let John chime in as well, but just that extra knowledge, that extra connection, being able to take photos of birds, being able to go on eBird and share the birds you're seeing and see what other birds have been seen in your neighborhood. I think that's a really great way that people are learning and getting out there. If they hear about a bird, maybe they want to go check it out. So absolutely.
John?
Yeah, certainly. eBird to track your birds, and there's out of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and they have a new app called Merlin, which helps you identify. Going out in nature and practicing is the best way to do it, but it closes that gap where you can, it can be intimidating. There's a lot of birds. There's a lot of birds up there, a lot of songs, and it can be intimidating and hard to learn. But these are nice new tools that can get people out there and excited. And being and connecting with nature.
All right.
So yes, definitely positive.
Nice. We've been speaking with John Hebert and Lyra Brennan about the decline of certain bird populations and the increase in growth we've seen in others. Thank you, John and Lyra.
Thank you.
Just ahead, bleeding statues, Boston sea monsters, mystery monkeys, and a breakthrough scientific explanation of why sneakers squeak. Plus, 4 more things to know. That's a lot. You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go away.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, she made Broadway history about women making history. Shaina Taub became the first woman to win Tony Awards for Best Book and Best Score on her own for the musical Suffs. As the show arrives in Boston, it brings the suffragists to life, the women who organized, protested, and forced the nation to grant them the right to vote. Shaina Taub joins us to talk about bringing the suffragists' fight to the stage. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And Johnson & Wales University, committed to going beyond the classroom by helping students develop networks, obtain real-world experience, and providing hands-on learning that makes an impact. More at jwu.edu.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Curiosity Desk senior producer Aidan Connolly is here. Hey, Aidan.
Hey, Edgar.
Okay, Aidan, here we go. A little role play. Ready? You're going to be Thomas Watson, and I am going to be Alexander Graham Bell.
Okay.
Okay, now you pretend that you're in the next room over and put your ear up to a telephone receiver. Sort of like the one they used on Lassie, right? But older.
What is Lassie?
So just put your ear right there. Ready?
Okay.
Here we go. Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you.
All right, now what do I do, Edgar?
Now you run back in from the other room and you're like jumping up and down and you're celebrating. Maybe you're crying tears of joy and you tell me that you heard me clearly, possibly while jumping up and down or clapping me on the back or something like that.
What are we doing here?
We are reenacting, Aidan, the world's very first phone call, which not far from where we're sitting. It happened right over in Back Bay.
150 years. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, I do have a question, though. So
Go on.
If Watson just heard Bell and then he came running in to tell him that, can we call that a phone call? Is that really the same thing?
That is a fair point. So I guess maybe the more accurate way to say it is that it was the first known successful transmission of intelligible speech over wires.
If we're being precise. Okay, so then where... begs the question, was the first one might call real, actual phone call?
It was the same people, Bell and Watson. It happened later that same year, 1876. In October, they had a 3-hour conversation. That also happened locally. Bell was in Boston and Watson was in Cambridgeport.
Well, I cannot wait to reenact that entire call with you in a few months.
It's coming.
But here is for today. Right now, there is news going on. And to my right, we have Gul Tziperman-Lotan with us. She, of course, writes the email newsletter, GBH Daily. Gul, hello.
Hello. Thanks for calling on me for this.
I see what you did there.
So you get it.
Oh, yeah, that is good.
So let's start in Boston's Seaport, where developers have a plan to build 9 new buildings on a 1.7 million square foot piece of land, kind of between Summer Street, West First Street, East Street, and Pappas Way.
Okay.
Their plans include 900 new apartments, lab space, and even extending F Street by about half a mile, which would allow the MBTA to extend the Silver Line.
Okay.
But there are 2 problems with those plans.
Aha. What are the problems?
Well, the MBTA told GBH's Jeremy Siegel that the developers have not actually talked to them about how feasible extending the Silver Line would be.
Talk to them?
Yeah, a spokesperson told Siegel that, quote, "We have not been contacted regarding this proposal, and there are currently no plans to extend the Silver Line in this way." The second problem is that there's also a storage yard on the land they'd need that has a lease going through 2034. So any changes will have to wait until then. But the MBTA said they're always open to collaborating and having conversations about it.
Okay.
Interesting. And of course, there's the parking question, which is, we'll see. But we also have some news about Boston's high school graduations, right?
Yes, some good news. So last year, Boston Public Schools had their highest ever school graduation rate, 81.3%. And that's a big jump from a decade ago. The graduation rate was about 70% in 2015.
Wow, that is a big jump. So do we have any sense of what it is that they're doing that is getting more students to graduate?
Yeah, so Mayor Michelle Wu said the city hasn't lowered its standards to push more students over the finish line. Here's what she said yesterday.
Instead, we got here by ensuring that every single student in every single classroom is seeing grade level content and getting the support they need to thrive.
Nice.
Superintendent Mary Skipper told GBH's Saraya Wintersmith that the schools have been putting more effort into reaching out to students at risk of dropping out and talking to them about some of what they're dealing with. Some students said they had to work to support their families, take care of parents, things like that.
It's interesting to see that method.
Yeah.
Gul, what else is going on?
Yeah, so let's move over to tourism. Massachusetts gets about 50 million tourists a year who spend about 24 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars when they're here.
Money, 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 money.
And the state supports that industry with about $10 million a year, money that comes from the lodging tax, which people pay on things like hotel stays, and tax from the state's big casinos, MGM Springfield and Encore Boston Harbor. Now, Governor Maura Healey wants to increase the revenue that fund gets from casinos from 1% of the revenue to 2%. And add about $2.5 million to the annual fund.
And this is happening, obviously, right now in the context of some big-ticket tourism events that are coming up. I'm thinking about the World Cup, all of the America 250 stuff that's happening, things like that.
Exactly. And the tourism money goes to regional tourism councils around the state, and they can use it on advertising, supporting local businesses, things like that.
All right, well, we'll keep following the money on that. And then speaking of America 250, right in there...
Yes. Here's one interesting thing that's happening as part of the celebrations. The Old North Church from the Revolutionary War era story of one lantern if by land, two if by sea.
That's right, the lanterns that launched Paul Revere's Midnight Ride.
Exactly. So the church, the Old North Church, is more than 300 years old, and they're marking this year by turning to some less famous members of their congregation.
Oh, nice.
Emily Spence, the director of education at Old North Illuminated, told GBH's All Things Considered that in the 1770s, the congregation was, quote, united in their faith but divided in their politics. So she said about a third of members believed that Massachusetts should remain under British rule, a third were in favor of American independence, and the rest fell somewhere in the middle. Spence said that history feels especially relevant now. You can hear her full conversation with Arun Roth on gbhnews.org.
Excellent.
We absolutely will. That is Gul Tziperman-Lotan, who writes the GBH Daily newsletter. If you want more local news in your inbox every morning, you can subscribe for free, we'll say, at gbh.org/daily.
Aidan, Gall, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Edgar.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Jason Tatum is, of course, finally back with the Celtics after what looked like last year was a career-defining Achilles injury. If you've been watching his return, or basically if you have passing familiarity with what it sounds like to watch a basketball game, you will no doubt recognize this sound. Yes, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the sound of a rubber sole on a wooden floor. Now, recently, a scientist at Harvard published new research into exactly what is going on in the soles of rubber sneakers to make that distinctive chirp. Turns out it's a harder question than you might expect. The scientist behind that research is Adel Djellouli. He's a research associate in material science and mechanical engineering at Harvard. We met him over Zoom and asked how the idea of chasing down this rabbit hole came in the first place.
When I arrived to the US, what you do as an immigrant to learn the culture, the local culture, is that you go to the sports events, and one of the most iconic ones here in Boston is the Celtics. So it was a natural thing to do. And it was the first experience for me to go to an NBA game. And, apart from the amazing ambiance, I don't know how to say it in English, like the cheering and all of that, what really stuck with me is this omnipresent sound of shoes squeaking, right? And it seems like people just tuned it out. But for me, it was something particular.
You're like, sure. What is happening here? So you decided to do research to what? To understand exactly why this was happening? And isn't this something we already knew?
At first, when you read the literature, because this is what scientists do, when they have a question, they have observations, and then they go and look at the literature. The literature tells you that, okay, there are some kind of instabilities that develop when you rub something soft and something hard. But these instabilities, they're quite slow. And people looked at the regime where they look at soft objects moving slowly on a hard object. But when you take a basketball player, you're talking about at least 3 feet per second when they move, right? And so it's a completely different regime. And we postulated that probably this explanation that was present in, let's say, in the literature and even in the New York Times, it was not satisfying for us.
So what did you do? I assume you designed an experiment. What was your experiment? How did you go about finding a satisfactory answer?
All right. So, we're a lab that studies friction. We're a lab of soft matter physics. So we are very familiar with these kind of questions. And we built a very simple tabletop setup that uses LEDs, and just like a glass panel, some mirrors, and a very expensive high-speed camera. So you put in your basketball shoes, and you rub it on the glass plate, and you look at the frictional interface. And lo and behold, what you see are these kind of pulses that make the shoe move. Think about it as a carpet that you're somehow folding
shaking
like
out.
this,
shaking it out,
or even like how do you call it, like a worm that moves?
Yeah,
right?
or those big ropes you see the people who are really into fitness doing the thing with the two ropes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's exactly the same thing. Imagine one of these ropes. You do one pulse like that. This is exactly what you see, but in a 2D interface. And so each time everything is stuck except where this fold is moving. And it moves at supersonic speed. What is
supersonic speed? Like, what do you mean by supersonic speed?
So materials have certain characteristic speeds at which certain waves travel through them. In this case, what matters for us is the shear wave speed, because when you're in friction, you're shearing the material. And there, for rubbers, you have a certain speed that you can characterize independently. And when you look at these folds moving, they move higher than the shear, at a faster rate than the shear wave speed in the material. So this is why it's faster than that speed, and that speed is the sonic speed, basically. There are two type of waves. The longitude, I'm not going to go in details, but yeah, it's very fast.
So very technical term is incredibly fast.
Incredibly fast. And it's so easy to miss. This is why people before maybe wouldn't be able to measure it.
And how does this speed, this rapid supersonic speed of these pulses or waves, how does that translate to the sound that we hear in our ears?
Great question, Edgar. So each time this pulse travels, it kicks the air, and the rate at which it kicks the air determines the sound that you hear from the shoe. And when we look at these opening slip pulses, this is what we call them, these kind of pulses that move. And we count them, how many are produced per second, and that gives you a certain frequency. And then we record the sound of the shoe at the same time, and we get a certain frequency as well, a certain note. We compare the two frequencies, we see they match 1-to-1. And that tells us that there's causality between the two.
So this makes me think, is it possible then, now that we know this, to essentially make sneakers that are tuned to a particular note and build a sneaker orchestra by which you could basically have the notes of the scale you need and then play them by squeaking shoes?
Yes, Edgar. So this is exactly the idea that we had. So we understood how this frequency scales with geometry, and we basically made notes. And instead of having them on our shoes, we made blocks with our hands. And so it's like squeaky notes. When you slide them on a smooth surface, they make a very particular note, and we played music with it.
It's amazing.
And that's one way to show that we can control it, yeah.
So, sneaker orchestras aside, why study friction in this way? I mean, presumably, like, you're a scientist, you saw a cool challenge, you said, here's something we don't understand. And so just on the nature of sort of pure science to say, this is something I think we could understand, let's study it and find out. That's cool. But more broadly, friction, as you said, is what you study at your lab. What are the implications of knowing more about friction, of learning more about friction, even something as simple as now we know why sneakers are squeaking the way they do?
Great question. So just so you know, what we are studying is what we call B-material friction. So it's two materials that are mismatched and they're rubbing against each other. And this is the most common case of friction, right? B-material friction. And this happens at every scale that we can imagine, from the nanoscale all the way to the scale of a planet. Think about tectonic plates. And so understanding what happens when you have high contrast between these two materials allows us to get a glimpse at what happens, for example, when you rub two tectonic plates, when you have these faults that have different soil composition. Let's say you have granite, hard rock, and soil on the other hand, they are not the same hardness, okay? And they rub against each other. And what happens when you rub? And basically what we discovered is that these pulses or these faults that travel supersonic at the supersonic speed, these were not as imagined to exist in rubber. They're mostly studied in geophysical field. And so basically what happens when a shoe squeaks is that it's generating the same type of events that happen in a rupture, right? In an earthquake.
Wow.
And so your shoe is making shoe quakes at 4,000 times per second.
Supersonic shoe quakes.
Exactly.
Adel, I wonder, do you feel like, given the fact that you have finally cracked the case of what is going on with the squeaky shoes, do you think you ought to be inducted into the back?
For sure, I would love to have a discussion with Jayden Brown on what he thinks about squeaking, but I think I didn't contribute that much to the NBA. Maybe like a fun story from for the fans, but definitely a discussion with Jayden Brown would be great.
You're very humble. Sadly, you have to sort of settle for a conversation with me on the Curiosity Desk, but we're happy that you stuck around to have it. All right. We've been speaking with Harvard material scientist Adel Djellouli about his research on why sneakers are squeaky and what it can teach us about friction. Adel, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us. Just ahead, we're diving into some bizarre and totally true pieces of Boston lore with two folks from the Globe. Statues crying blood? Okay, maybe not totally true, that we know of. This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go anywhere.
This year, we're getting to know each of the 26 gateway cities in Massachusetts. We're calling it 26 and 26. I'm Megan Smith. If you're in Malden, Quincy, Salem, Peabody, or Haverhill, I want to hear from you. What issues matter most? What concerns do you have? And what are you proud of in your neighborhood? Visit gbhnews.org/gateway cities and fill out our questionnaire. That's gbhnews.org/gateway cities.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Landvest Christie's International Real Estate, an independent brokerage representing residential and investment properties for buyers and sellers across New England and the Adirondacks since 1968. More at landvest.com. And CrowdStreet, a platform providing individual investors direct access to private equity, private credit, and real estate. Learn more at crowdstreet.com.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. For the rest of today, we are diving headfirst into the world of myths, oddities, and local legends. With us in studio, two local legends in their own right. Boston Globe Cold Case Files reporter Emily Sweeney and Heather Hopp-Bruce, director of visual strategy for Globe Opinion. They are the minds behind a piece for the Globe, 10 weird and totally true Boston stories. We saw this story and said, well, we have to do this on the show. Heather, Emily, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, let's start with the MBTA because who doesn't love stories about the MBTA? And one of your weird stories centers around some things that were found when there were some renovations at Government Center.
Yeah, so there were some renovations done, and they dug up, I think, like two of the creepiest costumes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're kind of patriotic looking, and you'll have to see the picture. But
yeah, I think we may have some image of this. So if you're watching on our YouTube stream, have a look, and we'll see if we can pull up an image of that. Maybe you could describe them for us.
Yeah, so I mean, the red, white, and blue. I've never seen really masks like this. I was trying to figure out what era they're from. But again, there's many questions around it, but they were dug up at the station when it went under renovation. So
what's creepy to me about that is that they were actually found entombed in concrete.
Yeah.
Like they weren't just left.
Somebody put them into the concrete theoretically while it was being poured?
Right, and they were found in 2015, and they think they'd been there for 60 years. So we're saying like the mid-50s.
So weird.
Someone had these horrifying they're like, what should we do with them? Let's entomb them in concrete at the MBTA Government Center station.
Genius.
Yeah, amazing. So one of the other things, there's a photo in this piece, and if you haven't seen this piece on the Globe, I encourage folks to go check it out because it's it's not just an article, right? There's beautiful photography. This is laid out really nicely, but there's old signage. It looks like it's in tile that says Scully under on the wall there. Do we know what happened to that? Because in the picture, there's somebody wrote save, so obviously they uncovered this and they wanted to keep. Do we know what happened to it?
I think it's still there. I'm not sure though.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Good question. I believe it was preserved because Scully under, Government Center kind of took over Scully Square. So I think it is one remnant left over of the old station.
So there's another aspect to this piece that wasn't in this one.
Oh, go on.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
So about a year and a half ago, we did something similar to this project on unsolved, creepy, bizarre Boston archaeological oddities. And the first piece in that was about these abandoned MBTA tunnels under Government Station. And they were abandoned in about 1960, so really close to the time period where they think that these masks were left there. And this tunnel is so creepy. They allowed a few groups of people into it. I forgot, it was a year not that long ago, and I weaseled my way into the press group.
Good for you.
It is scary. And the last wall of the tunnel shares a wall with one of the Government Center Station tunnels. And I'm like, the time period kind of lines up. The creepiness for sure lines up. I don't know if there's a connection. Maybe.
I love it. Another mystery to be solved. Okay, Emily, I'm going to ask you to finish this sentence for me. One time, I got a magnet fishing kit for Christmas, and then...
Yeah, so I'm an avid magnet fisher person, and I've caught like nothing. I've thrown my magnet in Boston Harbor, in all types of places, and I've just caught like little screws and stuff.
Can you describe a magnet fishing kit for us? Is it what I'm imagining?
Yeah. So it's an extremely powerful magnet at the end of a very long rope, and you toss it, with like kind of like lasso style into the ocean or off a bridge, and you pull it up hoping to find like a safe or something like that.
Yeah.
I haven't been lucky, but some other people in Linfield at a pond up there were like, they pulled out Uzis, old school Uzis.
Like the gun Uzis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I've got a bunch of fish hooks.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Nice. So you're also a magnet fisher?
Yeah, I paddleboard in the Charles.
Is anybody at the Globe not a magnet fisher? What is going on?
We will catch something.
Yes, someday.
No, it's really fun. You're paddleboarding on the Charles. You just kind of drag it behind you and see what it pulls up.
All right.
It's fish hooks.
But mostly guns, it sounds like. Uzis and other guns.
Yeah. I mean, those were the big finds that I could find in the Boston area.
Often loaded, which is the other crazy thing, right? Like these guns are like in the water and they're loaded.
Yeah, who tosses a gun into the water?
Well, the thing is, if you find a gun in the water, it's not going to be there for a good reason.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great point. Yep. We're speaking with Heather Hopp-Bruce and Emily Sweeney from the Boston Globe. Check out their piece on bostonglobe.com, 10 weird and totally true Boston stories. We're talking about some of them now. We get into monsters because how can you got to get into monsters, right?
Yeah.
So monsters in the waterways. One I think that people remember is an alligator in the Charles.
Yeah, we actually had written that piece, and that was done. It started because I was paddleboarding again in Crystal Lake in Newton.
Okay.
And I saw this big, huge koi, and this was years ago, and I researched this weird fish and talked to Crystal Lake Conservancy people. They're super nice. They're like, yeah, we've been trying to catch those two things for years because they're awful. They're just fish jerks. They ruin everything. Somebody caught a alligator in the Charles,
which is crazy.
Yeah,
it's just a little baby alligator.
It doesn't matter the size of the alligator; it's an alligator.
So we added that to the top because the photos were so
yeah. If you're watching us on YouTube, we had an image there of the alligator. Do we know how or why was this somebody's pet alligator that escaped, or do we think it sort of got there on its own?
That's a speculation. I mean, I would assume so. It didn't take a bus from Florida.
Yeah, I think somebody probably abandoned it, unfortunately. Yeah. Probably. But
somebody
again, we don't
knows this alligator and this koi. They should have been in the same body of water because maybe the alligator could have eaten the koi. And then we catch the alligator and everything's fine.
Yeah, nature finds its balance, even here. All right, so you talked about magnet fishing and the idea that maybe you would bring up a safe. And when I hear safe, I think Briggs heist. I mean, everybody loves a heist, and the Briggs heist is one of the great heists of all time. And this sort of comes up, as does some other interesting things that people have squirreled away behind walls and in cubbies and stuff. So can we talk a little bit about, just for folks who don't know, remind them about the Briggs heist and what the sort of result of that was.
Yeah, so the Brinks robbery in Boston in 1950 was, at the time, one of the biggest heists, of money and securities that happened in history. And huge robbery. Nobody knew where the money went. And to this day, very little of it has been recovered. But some of it was recovered. A lot of people don't realize that about $55,000 was found hidden in a cooler within a hidden wall in the South End, in a brownstone, in the lower part where an office was. So,
which is amazing.
Yes.
And it was like years. It wasn't like right away, or was it right away when they found this kind of squirreled away?
Yeah, it was years later, and they did find that there was like evidence that the money had been buried. There was evidence that, it may have been wet at some time. So this money had probably been moved around, before it ended up in the hidden wall. So, but $55,000, that was about it.
There's one photo that I could find in all my research of this money. It's a little tiny low-res funny. You can't see it very well. It's an FBI photo, but it's severely deteriorated.
Yeah. So not really usable.
Yeah.
But still, a whole bunch of the money just not found. Nobody knows.
Somebody just got away with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, some of the guys may have hidden it away. Other guys spent it. And,
All right. Let's talk about the Boston Garden monkey. We were just talking about squeaky shoes. Why basketball shoes squeak, and that is a mystery that has recently been solved. But I think there are certain elements of the Boston Garden monkey tale that remain mysterious. But let's tell people who have not heard this story about the Boston Garden monkey.
All right, that story was by Gwen Egan, who was our third person on this, and she was just fantastic. And I'm going to get the dates wrong.
But we don't have to worry. I mean,
right. So let's say it was like 1999 when they wrote a story about it. Anyway, so they were redoing the Boston Garden. And the construction workers found this old, dried-up monkey carcass in the rafters. And didn't want to tell their bosses because they didn't want anyone to take the monkey carcass away. They thought it was good luck. So they hid it in the utility box.
Like you do.
Yeah, there's stories that at one point someone took it off-site and bad things happened, so they brought it on the site. Bosses heard about it and asked them about it. They're like, no, there's no monkey carcass here. What are you talking about? So it's a real true thing. The Boston.com did an amazing series of articles on it a few years back with great photos, which we were able to use for this, and it's a fantastic story.
So speaking of those photos, we also, this is a story we also covered on the Curiosity Desk some time ago, and we spoke with that once Boston.com reporter. He's a teacher now. About his kind of uncovering of this, and here's what he had to say about how he got those photos.
I got contacted by a woman who said her husband was actually one of the building wreckers on that project. He pulled out the photo album and let me look through. It was like developed film photo after photo of this monkey in various places in and around the garden, different building wreckers posing with it, putting like Dunkin' Donuts cups in its hand. So the monkey had quite the experience.
Yeah, if you're watching our YouTube stream, we have the photo of the monkey with the Dunkin' Donuts in his hand on our stream, which is just, I don't know if it's awesome or disturbing. I am so of two minds with this story. But we still, the part of this that's a mystery is nobody's really 100% sure where the monkey came from, right?
Yeah, exactly. There were many, many, many years previous, there had been a circus there, and a bunch of monkeys had escaped. But from what I understand, A, they found those monkeys, and B, it was so long ago.
Yeah, it was like the 30s.
Right.
The idea that you presume the monkey would have been a skeleton by then, even if it lived for a while?
Yeah, or just dust or whatever. But there's something about the deterioration of a monkey body that this timeline doesn't match up. So my question is, how long was the monkey alive? Not just how did it get there, but what was it doing?
Right. What was it doing? The garden is a playground of sorts.
It could be an excellent place for a monkey. There's food.
Yeah, there's rafters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're speaking with Heather Hopp-Bruce and Emily Sweeney from Boston Globe about their piece 10 Weird and Totally True Boston Stories. Sad Ghost, or it goes by many names, Sad Ghost and others. Tell us about Sad Ghost.
Oh, I love Sad Ghost. I think if you've been around long enough, you've seen a sad ghost here and there. And I did a lot of research as much as I could. Obviously any kind of graffiti tag or identity is completely hidden on who is doing this thing and or how many people are doing this thing and why is it this sometimes and this another time, and just there's really not much information. There's a couple of great Instagram accounts dedicated to Sad Ghost, so you can see a lot of pictures of Sad Ghost, but I kind of like the mystery of it too. It's just this little guy just flitting around doing his thing. He's always very upset, and we don't know why. Sometimes there's more than one. There's this drama going on in Sad Ghost world that we'll never know why.
Emily, what do you make of Sad Ghost?
I love street art and graffiti, so I'm a fan. Count me a fan.
Nice,
absolutely.
Okay, this statue that cries blood. We need to talk about this statue that cries blood. Please take us there.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
The Statue of Gloria. Seriously, shivers went down the spines of many listeners who know.
No. If you know, you know. If you know, you shivered. Kids growing up in Boston for years and years, especially around like West Roxbury, Jamaica Plain area, would go up, me included. I'm from Dorchester, but I went to Boston Latin, had friends in those neighborhoods, and we would go up to this 13-foot tall statue at night. And it was very dark up there, right on the border of Brookline and JP, and just, scared ourselves pretty much. Because when you encountered this, huge statue with its face at the time was kind of like missing a nose and everything, it was really scary, really, really spooky. And then I was shocked to find out that this was like a very important statue. Yeah, so it essentially disappeared. I mean, at least, to the consciousness of those who were going and saying, like, if you stare at it long enough, it's going to cry blood and freaking yourselves out. Then one day, presumably a group of kids goes up there and poof, it's gone.
Yeah, Statue of Gloria, bam, disappeared.
However,
2011.
It wasn't really gone. What happened?
It's at the freaking MFA now.
Like, it's the big thing there.
Yes. The official name of the statue is Juno, and if you look up on the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston's website, you can find out the history of the statue, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to see it in the museum. I wonder if it gives off the same spooky vibes.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we were feeling something that, like, I don't know, that like...
It's like first century, like, right? It's
old.
like Roman times. It's like 2,000-plus-year-old statue.
Old and huge, and yes, and so the Statue of Gloria.
And you've seen it at the MFA?
I have not, actually. I've just seen it in the wild as a teenager.
I have, and it has a thing. I mean, you walk in, and it's in this room, and it's just like, whoa, it's amazing. It's this beautiful thing, and this is before I knew your story. And the MFA was so awesome to work with on this. They sent me really high-res images of it, and they were just fantastic, but wow.
But did you ever see it cry?
I did not.
Did you ever know anybody who was like, no, it definitely cries?
I heard stories from people that allegedly saw it.
Yeah.
Let's say yes.
All right. Well, thank you both. We've been speaking with Heather Hopp-Bruce and Emily Sweeney from the Boston Globe. Check out their piece on bostonglobe.com, 10 Weird and Totally True Boston Stories. Heather, Emily, thanks so much for sharing your work with us. Jared Bowen is with me now. We were just talking about the statue of Juno at the MFA and its long history as a statue that supposedly cried blood.
I haven't seen it. I didn't make it happen.
Don't blame you.
Wasn't there. Had nothing to do with it.
Well, what do you have coming
that
up?
Explains the box of Kleenex they always have in the gallery.
Okay, well, presumably you're not going to be crying on your show today.
No, not today.
What are you going to be doing?
We're going to be talking about Suffs, the Tony-winning musical that's coming to town. Shaina Taub wrote the show. She made history as the only woman to win Best Score, Best Composition for writing musicals, the Tony Awards, that is. So she's going to talk about that and what she's for this show that's been all the rage. We're going to talk to Kiernan Schmitt of Secret Boston, his guide about St. Patrick's Day alternatives for things around town.
That's great.
And then the last time that Fabiola Méndez was on the show, she's a Cuatrista, played. We thought she was so beautiful, her singing voice, her playing. Since she has been on the show, Bad Bunny has also decided she's really amazing in terms of a performer, and she has performed with him. She's coming back to perform with us and talk about her experiences since then.
Tremendous. That is the Culture Show coming up in just under 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere. As for us, that's it for us for today. The Curiosity Desk team made it happen. We will be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. Until then, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where graduate students can build vital business skills through experience. Business Bootcamp Series, April 13th through 17th. northeastern.edu/business bootcamp. It's the origin story of America the way only Ken Burns can tell it. And now you can get an in-depth look at how the documentary came together, as told by the people who collaborated on it. It's The Making of the American Revolution, tonight at 7:30 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, she wrote it, she composed it, and she made history for it. Shaina Taub is the first woman to win Tony Awards for Best Book and Best Score on her own for the musical Suffs. Now arriving in Boston, the show tells the story of the suffragists who fought for the right to vote. Shaina Taub joins us to talk about bringing their fight and their voices back to life. Then St. Patrick's Day in Boston arrives with the parade, green beer, and crowded bars. But beyond all the St. Patty's parties, there's another Boston, one shaped by Irish immigration, Catholic devotion, and political assent, not to mention the other bits and bobs of those histories left across the city. Kiernan Schmitt, author of Secret Boston, takes us on a singular St. Patrick's Day tour. And Puerto Rican Cuatrista and singer Fabiola Méndez brings the island's signature stringed instrument into the present and onto major stages, including alongside Bad Bunny. Ahead of her Regattabar show, she joins us to talk about music, tradition, and just how she became the musician Bad Bunny has called on again and again. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. This is The Culture Show, and this is Finish the Fight. That's from the Broadway cast recording of the musical Suffs, written by Shaina Taub. Her work on the show made her the first woman in history to win Tony Awards for Best Book and Best Score by herself. The musical, which she also starred in on Broadway, traces the final hard-fought push for the 19th Amendment as American women organized, protested, and demanded the right to vote. In Suffs, Taub played Alice Paul, the uncompromising strategist who helped drive the suffrage movement forward, even as it faced challenges from within over issues including race and leadership. In the musical, we find Paul flanked by other towering figures of the era, like Ida B. Wells, Carrie Chapman Catt, and Lucy Burns, women who marched, organized, and risked everything to force a nation to expand its democracy. On Broadway, Hillary Clinton joined the production as a producer, her presence linking the unfinished business of the suffragists to the modern corridors of power they fought to enter. Now, just in time for Women's History Month, Suffs is coming to the Emerson Colonial Theatre by way of Broadway in Boston. It's on stage March 17th through the 29th. Joining us to talk about it all is Shaina Taub. Welcome to The Culture Show. It is such a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, tell me about, you spent 10 years writing this piece, how you describe the show as it ultimately took shape after those 10 years of thinking about this movement and your writing.
When this story was first brought to me by one of our producers who, we were 25-year-olds, just out of college, no money, just no support really, but she had this idea of turning this movement into a musical. And when she brought it to me, I realized that I really didn't know anything about women's suffrage. I grew up going to public school in North Central Vermont. And I'd never heard of any of these women. I'd heard of maybe Susan B. Anthony, and I knew her face was on a coin, but I didn't know about any of the women you just mentioned in your introduction that, of course, are now characters in the show. Alice Paul, Ida B. Wells, Carrie Chapman Catt. So it just blew my world open because I had been sort of hungry for a story like this about a group of young people taking on a big system. And it was sort of right here in my backyard this whole time. And this chapter of American history is sort of strikingly undramatized in American film and theater. And so, right away as a dramatist, you look for the conflict. Right? You're like, what is going to be the central meaty conflict in this piece of drama? Because I thought, hopefully, and I tried, the best way I could try to honor this history on stage was to try to make it as juicy a piece of drama as possible. And for me, where it really felt electrifying to me was the conflict within the movement itself. I didn't want a show about the suffrage movement to sort of be an easy exercise for a liberal progressive audience to sit and pat ourselves on the back for being on the, quote, right side of history, because it's always more complicated than that, right? I was more interested in how does a group of people who share the same goal, in theory, have widely different ideas of how to achieve it. Well, that felt like the stuff of drama to me.
And where did you find that nuance, and what really compelled you in creating these characters that, no, it wasn't, okay, we fight, we win, end of story, that there was so much more to it than that?
Absolutely. I think sometimes, in hindsight, social movements in America do get reduced to a very simple narrative, one charismatic leader who got it done in 1 year, and really the story is deeper than that. For me, I call it, the Suffrage Gateway Drug is a book that I highly recommend. You could read it before you see the show or after, called Jailed for Freedom. That's a first-person primary source account by a woman named Doris Stevens, who is a character in the musical, that is it reads like a thriller to me. And it's about specifically 1913 and 1917, which is where the center of gravity is in the show, of how these women organized to picket and march, and how they went to jail and everything else. And it was that book that kind of tipped me off to there was much more to the story.
These are women who didn't know, as we like to remind each other now with history, they didn't know how it was going to end. They didn't know what they were going to accomplish or the danger that would befall them in some cases. How did you look at it through that prism of trying to insinuate yourself into their early 20th century lives?
Absolutely. Again, these movements in hindsight, they can seem inevitable. It seems so obvious. We all now take for granted, of course, women vote. But my challenge as a dramatist was how can I make it clear to a contemporary audience, not only how impossible this seemed as an idea, how radical it seemed as an idea, and how unprecedented their tactics of protest were to go about and get it. People had never marched down Pennsylvania Avenue for a political grievance before. People had never held a picket sign outside the White House. Iconic images of American protest we take for granted today. They were pioneering. I think there's sort of like a myth that activists of the past were superhumans made of gold and bronze, and really they were ordinary, everyday people like you and me who were flawed and frustrated and sometimes hopeful, sometimes cynical, and everything in between. And they didn't think they were special, and so it was important to me, really, I want to honor them, yes, but to humanize them and to help us understand that, like, everyday ordinary citizens have made change in the past, and we can do it too.
And here you've done this in the form of musical, of course. Let me play a little bit from Keep Marching. Again, this is from the original Broadway cast. Again, Keep Marching from the Tony Award-winning musical Suffs. Could be such a great story for the musical theater stage.
A couple things called out to me. Like I was mentioning before, so the protest tactics that these women pioneered were so theatrical. I think they understood the power of image and speech and choreography and costume. They were marching down the street in the thousands, all in synchronized lockstep, wearing white because they knew that white would stand out in photographs. So there was sort of inherent theatricality to me to a lot of these scenes and these songs. They were literally singing and marching in the street. And then also for me, musicals, American musicals to me are these unique multi-generational projects that are kind of like a breeding ground for democracy. Like we all grow up in school doing Fiddler and Music Man, and there are these like perennial communal pageants that we all literally have to take on and wear the shoes of these characters again and again and again. And so it's like I was hoping to put something in the canon that would allow new generations to continue to tell these stories in their own ways as time goes on. You know, for me, of course, there are modern resonances with the movement, and today we could be here all day talking about some of the frightening parallels, and yet again, I hope only time will tell how well I did or didn't do. But for me, the great musicals that depict a historical moment, musicals like Fiddler on the Roof, Cabaret, Hair, Rent, they speak to whatever moment they're in. They always feel like they were written at the moment they're performed, because they're not they're trying to deal with these evergreen questions that every new generation has to wrestle with. So I did try with Suffs to not have it speak to any one moment, to hopefully that it could be expansive enough to contain whatever moment is performed. For instance, that finale key marching you just played, I thought for years of how should I end this show? I don't, how much do we celebrate this victory, and how much do we mourn? How much do we celebrate how far we've come, and also mourn how far we still have to go, and hold both those truths in our hands? So that song is sort of my attempt, my offering to an audience of what if these Suffs could reach across through the century and speak to us here in 2026 or whenever the show is performed, and offer us, some hard-won, clear-eyed vision of hope.
Well, I know I will take your caution there that, yes, we could spend the entire day, especially on NPR, talking about this and the parallels. But I do want to ask about, it was fascinating to me to understand that you wrote this over the course of 10 years. And then the moment in which it's introduced, of course, very quickly finds the presidential election. And, of course, where Kamala Harris was a candidate. And there was so much conversation about your show because I think you stirred so much up in people. It was another way, as the arts always can be, another way to see this moment in life, in politics, etc. How did you see your show meeting that moment, especially at that time, to say nothing of today?
I saw it as, the theater to me is our cultural cathedral. It's our non-denominational forum to gather together and feel things out loud together in public, to cry together, to process together, to grieve together. So I felt we had this amazing honor as a show throughout 2024, in the months leading up to the election and the months after it, to hold people through this moment, whatever they were feeling that day. They're all, we're all in our silos on our phones, and that 1,000 people came to the Music Box Theater every night and went through it together. And that sort of just felt like a really profound calling for us. We had a show the night of the election, we had a show the afternoon after, and they both felt electric and cathartic, and to be together with people. I mean, there was different feelings, but it felt just as, communally important to spend time together. So I really feel like the theater is a place, the news has its place, museums have its place, all of these cultural centers, but the theaters where we're one of the only places I can think of we're all permitted to have an emotional experience with strangers in public. So I think, and this year with the show on tour, it's the first time Suffs in its lifetime has been performed under this current president. And I hope it will continue to be performed no matter who's in the White House at any time. But I'm hoping, and what I've noticed on the road, I got to see the show in Cleveland and Los Angeles and Washington State, is depending on what's going on in the news that day, you get to come to the theater and process it in a group.
How was it to have, I remember reading that Hillary Clinton had come on board as a producer, which brought its own weight to it. What was it to have this real intersection with a major political figure, a major historical figure, and the history you were telling in your show?
So beyond meaningful. I mean, she's been such a hero of mine and so many of ours for so long, and just such a, as you mentioned in your introduction, her accomplishments as a leader in this country have just a direct relationship to the progress that her and our collective ancestors, the suffragists, paved the way for us. So it feels beautiful to sort of connect those generations. And just what I think, one of the things that makes Secretary Clinton such a special leader is she deeply appreciates and understands the importance of the arts to democracy. And that at the theater, it's not a frivolous pursuit. It is, I'm not trying to glorify the importance of my one show. I'm talking about theater as a whole. It's important for a healthy democracy, for citizens to be able to get up on a stage in public and tell an honest story, reckoning with uncomfortable truths about our nation's past. Especially right now, as we're seeing cuts to, the station where I'm in, NPR, PBS, the Smithsonian, we're seeing an active campaign from this administration to try and censor how we tell the history of this country. That's not an alarmist thing to say. It's just the fact of what's happening.
Constriction that's happening around the arts, it made me wonder about your show. Has it affected how you've been able to get it out into the world and on the road?
I mean, our tour was hard fought and hard won. It was not a sure thing. Not every Broadway show automatically gets to tour. I'm so grateful to all the markets and houses that have welcomed us on the road, but I won't lie to you, it was hard at first to kind of get, for people who didn't know the show, hadn't seen it, and I don't know what that was. I don't want to assign meaning to it, but it was not an easy thing to plan. But now, what's exciting to me is it seems to be going so well on the road. There's more interest now. Some of the cities that maybe weren't sure at first now, are now interested, and it'll be interesting to see as it has its life around the country. Right now there are 12 high schools around the country doing the show this year. We did a grant program called the Young Are at the Gates grant. That's one of the songs in the show, one of the phrases that was on the Suffs banners, that we awarded free grants for schools to do the show. And it was really moving to me, the schools and from where they applied. We have a production in Alabama, we have a production in Louisiana, in Florida, in Virginia, really all over. And these drama teachers that were writing to us to sort of apply for this grant, and how important it was for them to bring a story like this to their student and school community, really was heartening to me.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Shaina Taub, who is a 2-time Tony Award winner for Best Book and Best Original Score for Suffs, which is coming to the Emerson Colonial Theatre by way of Broadway in Boston, March 17th through the 29th. Just want to pivot a little bit in our last few minutes, just talk to you about your process. As I said, you're the first person on her own to win these 2 Tonys for writing book, music, lyrics. Do you do all of this?
So many things. I mean, I may have won those awards solo. Theater is such a team sport. I mean, I had a phenomenal creative team and actors and producers who really kept the faith through a long process with many setbacks and obstacles. And also, I try to be a real student of the craft. There's so many. In New York, the theater community is kind of like a small village. And I've just really been so fortunate to be on the receiving end of mentorship from some of my heroes, Janine Tesori, Lynn Ahrens, Liz Swados. So many writers have been so generous. Lin-Manuel Miranda with, I'd invite them to readings and get their notes. And those were everything to me. I sort of thrive off of criticism. I want the notes. I want to do everything I can to make it better. So I just tried to, I can't control the outcome or how people receive the show, but I could control how hard I worked on it. So I tried to just be as rigorous as I could and not give up.
As you mentioned earlier in our conversation, you grew up in rural Vermont. Was musical theater a big part of your growing up? Were you listening to musical theater from a very early age?
Yeah, my mom would get me Broadway cast albums for Hanukkah. And so I just became really obsessed early on. Rent was huge. I just became so fixated on that. And really, in North Central Vermont, there was really like a robust theater community. We had amazing community theaters, the Valley Players in Waitsfield, Lyric Theater in Burlington. So I really found theater was alive and well. There was a lot of it. And a lot of us, there's a group of us from Vermont who are in New York doing theater now. And I feel like I was raised on it. Yeah.
Aeneas Mitchell, Hadestown, of course, another huge example.
Iconic. Aeneas is incredible. I was lucky to get to know her 10 years ago. I was in the off-Broadway production of Hadestown, and I really, getting to work so closely with her, I was writing a bit, I was starting to write, but I was mostly a performer, but really watching her process and watching her genius and her refusal to give up and continual rewrites over also many years really inspired me to try to take on stuff. So yeah, I'm a huge, and I feel very proud to share the 802 phone number.
Yeah. Well, last question for you. Was it always just a very linear focus on theater? Did you ever think about doing anything else? It sounds impossible to think otherwise, given what you've done, but how was it for you?
Definitely one of those theater kids. I've just loved it, always been drawn to it, always felt like I sort of found my tribe and my people in this world. And yeah, I do also kind of, have had a passion for history and was always so into that in school. So really, theater has fused my passion for both of those things and for politics. I've been asked this question before and I'm like, maybe I could work on like a political campaign. But for me, theater that's where I've always been.
Well, as you say, the campaigns are a different kind of theater.
That is true. Honestly, it's all storytelling. It's all narrative building, right? In your work as well.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on the show. It's been a great privilege, as I said, to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shaina Taub is a 2-time Tony Award winner for Best Book and Best Original Score for Suffs. She made history as the first woman to win both awards on her own for the same musical. Suffs is coming to town by way of Broadway and Boston, on stage at the Emerson Colonial Theatre March 17th through the 29th. Coming up, Boston does St. Patrick's Day with a parade and plenty of pints, but Kiernan Schmitt, author of Secret Boston, takes us to some stranger and more revealing places in and around town to enhance the St. Paddy's Day experience. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Make getting ready for the day the most productive part of your day.
From the GBH Newsroom in Boston, I'm Mark Hurst.
Get the local news you need to know. Traffic and transit updates. And weather with meteorologist Dave Epstein.
The gusty wind in the afternoon, partly cloudy.
When you're getting ready, get ready with us.
Time to round up the week with our incisive politics reporter, Adam Riley.
GBH's Morning Edition with Mark Hurst. Weekdays starting at 6 on GBH 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News app.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. And the Chevalier Theatre, presenting Dancing with the Celts, coming to Medford on March 13th. The Celts combine the sound of Ireland and Nashville and are accompanied by Irish step dancers. Ticket info at chevaliertheatre.com. And Explore New England. From the waters of Block Island to the White Mountains of New Hampshire, this original documentary film series explores the region's great outdoors through a variety of activities. Available on YouTube and Roku or explorenewengland.tv.
The news and reporting you hear on GBH is made possible by the listeners who trust the GBH Newsroom to deliver fact-based news and information every day. Support the journalism you trust. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. In Boston, St. Patrick's Day can mean a lot of things. A parade in Southie, a pint or 4 raised in a crowded pub, a city awash in green. But there are some other ways to supplement your experience and or love of Irish history and heritage in memorials, chapels, and the stories tucked into the city's walls. Kiernan Schmitt knows where to find them. He's the author of Secret Boston, a guide to the city's lesser-known corners and overlooked histories. And for St. Patrick's Day, he's taking us to some sites that open up Boston's Irish and Catholic past. Kiernan, Patrick, welcome back to The Culture Show.
I don't always go by the full name, but I appreciate it for today.
We'll establish it today. I was just realizing, I'm not sure, for as long as I've been in Boston, I've ever been to the St. Patrick's Day parade. Have you?
I have not, but in researching for today, I was shocked to find out that the first celebration of St. Patrick's Day in Boston, the first in North America, was here, and it was March 17th, 1737.
1737. That is extraordinary.
It was not in Southie at that time.
I don't think there was. Was there?
I don't
even a
think there was.
Southie?
Exactly.
They hadn't done the fill yet. I know that was Back Bay, but did that include a parade? Do you know anything about that celebration?
I think it was a very simple ceremony, but it was meant to welcome Irish immigrants that were coming along with the British. So very much in keeping with what the celebration has become for Boston all of these centuries later.
So we've all come by it earnestly.
Exactly.
So I don't think I'll make it to the parade this year, but we'll have to make a date to go next year.
Absolutely. I'm in for that.
Okay. Well, let's start with many of these we'll find in your book, but the Irish Famine Memorial.
Yeah, there's a couple of these around town. So we'll talk about the one in Boston, and then there's one in Cambridge that I actually like a little better. The one in Boston is near Downtown Crossing. It's at the bottom of School Street, and it shows these two Irish families. One's Irish American and one is Irish, suffering through the Great Hunger. And it's kind of strange because the Irish family is bedraggled, clearly starving, clearly undergoing deprivation. And the Irish American family is proudly suburban looking very upright. The father's not even facing the suffering family and sort of striding into the future. And it was installed in 1998. So this is not super distant from our own time. But people really criticized it to say it seems almost like you're shunning the Irish and rewarding the people who had the meager resources to make it across the ocean.
Well, that's what's so extraordinary to remember, and what this is supposed to be remembering is just the horrible circumstances that befell the people of Ireland, that more than 1 million people died. There was such epic starvation, and the continuation of that is how many people came here only to not be welcomed here in the United States.
That's right. I have a great stat. In 1847 alone, which was sort of the height of the famine, 37,000 Irish immigrants fled to Boston, and over the full course, 1845 to 1852, 2 million people fled Ireland in that time.
Well, you said that there is reason to perhaps have pause for this monument here in Boston, but you have another one that resonated a little more deeply with you?
Yeah, the one in Cambridge Common, similarly distressed figures, but it's an Irish family who are actually being separated from one another, one trying to seek fortunes further on, likely in the U.S. And this one was put in place in 1997, was actually dedicated by the Irish president at the time, traveled to Cambridge. And it's got a lovely quote on it. It's very simple, and it says, "Never again should a people starve in a world of plenty."
Well, and that's what I think as we again become reacquainted with this famine every year on anniversaries is the circumstances that led to that. People talk about the colonialism. They talk about obviously what led to it, the crop failure, but also absentee landlords. And we know that these are all issues that still plague us.
Absolutely.
150 years later.
Yes.
So if we're not to leave the potato famine quite yet on the show, there is a memorial that I've never heard of, because I do remember that one being unveiled in Boston. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the Charlestown potatoes.
Yeah, so this is the Potato Shed Memorial, and it's one of my favorite statues in town, and it is not well visited, and it's because it's in Charlestown on a little area called the Millers River Littoral Walk. That's literal Littoral on the coast there, and it's a little tributary to the Charles River, and it's basically directly under I-93. But if you go, you will be treated to a statue.
What do you mean if? You don't think people are flocking to be underneath 93?
When you go, it's very hard to find the exit. I remember just getting there. It took me about half a day. There's a statue by a sculptor named Ross Miller, and what it honors is this 5-alarm fire that happened in May 1962. This neighborhood in Charlestown was actually called Potato Row, and it's where several railroads came together, and it's where potatoes from Maine would come by the millions of pounds and be stored in these enormous warehouses. And it was a great pride of the industry there. And this fire broke out and destroyed millions and millions of pounds of potatoes.
Destroyed, not roasted.
Well, it's interesting you say that exactly, because the Boston Globe described it as they were given a thorough roasting.
Oh, so
and it sort of reminds me of the Great Molasses Flood, where old timers would say on certain weather conditions you could still smell the sweetness. And similarly in this neighborhood, they say certain days, certain wind temperatures, you can still get just a whiff of potato.
So why was Charlestown, of all places, this industry of potato, or repository, I should say? We weren't the industry, but we were the repository.
I mean, it really was just because this is where the railroads met, and so they would continue on from Maine down the East Coast. And the local Irish community, they can remember, you used to go down to the warehouse and collect potatoes for your dinner virtually every day. So it was a real hit to the neighborhood.
Do you have a sense of how long that smells lingered? Because, and I ask that in light of, don't people still say about the North End that on certain days
I don't think anybody
smell...
I certainly didn't smell any when I was there. But the statue itself is fun. It's 4 burlap bags of potatoes, and one of them's sort of ripped open with potatoes spilling out of it. And then there's just a little plaque that has the word potato and potatoes repeated over and over again. So it's good my middle name is Patrick, or else I feel like people would be like, you're stereotyping for St. Patrick's Day.
Do you feel like there really is a statue for just about everything in Boston after the quest you've embarked on for your book?
Oh, that's interesting. There's a couple that I think we need. There's a big one that I'm passionate about, which is that Richard Scarry, the children's book author, was born here, and I feel that we need a statue of lowly worm.
A lowly and glowworm.
And that's right.
Wasn't glowworm part of it too?
There's Goldbug.
Goldbug, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, there was that predated Where's Waldo?
Yes,
you would have the
right.
book, and you would have to find the Goldbug.
Oh, I've got little ones. I know Goldbug well.
Well, you've catapulted me back to my own childhood finding. I think those are still at my parents' house, actually. So, all right, let's be on a quest. We can do this here at the Culture Show. This is part of our issue, is to campaign for cultural preservation.
We need a Richard Scarry memorial.
All right, we're on it. So I am speaking to Kiernan Schmitt, the author of Secret Boston, An Unusual Guide. He is co-host, along with Ryan Davis, of the travel podcast Out of Office. So let's move to something I think is really quite interesting and moving. This is a crutch display that people would find at the Catholic Basilica or Shrine of Our Lady of Perpetual Hope. Hope being quite significant here. Yeah,
it's funny. So, I felt like it was only right to include a few Catholic spots. And there is a St. Recommend if you decide to go to Mass on St. Patrick's Day, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which is a beautiful basilica in Mission Hill, has this very interesting side chapel that is virtually, there's very little written up about this here in Boston, but it's festooned by hundreds of crutches and canes and braces. And it's because this chapel has been renowned as a place of healing since the late 1800s. And you can see that wear and tear. These are not modern medical devices that are there. And it basically became a destination in 1883. There was a little 12-year-old girl. Her name was Grace Hanley. And when she was 4, she was tossed out of a carriage and broke her spine, and she had paralysis. And for years and years, her family tried all these crazy interventions, including shocks with electricity and ice packs and all sorts of therapies that didn't work. And then finally, in 1883, they did what the Catholics call a novena, which is 9 days of prayer and fasting. And on the 9th day, it is said they came and they prayed at this chapel, and she was miraculously healed. And now there are stories of cancer, blindness, deafness, and lameness, all being healed at this place. So it's really something to see those stacks and stacks of crutches.
Do you have any sense of how far into present day this has continued and people make pilgrimages?
When was the latest miracle? I don't know. Next time I'm in, I'll have a report on that. I'll have to reach out to the parish to ask.
And I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself from prior conversations, but are these things, what's the combination of how you find these things between happening upon them, hearing about them? I mean, that's an extraordinary story in and of itself.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of it's a lot of reading, just walking around. I did a lot of just on foot exploration, and every little plaque that you see, you give it a read and see if there's a deeper story behind it. But otherwise, I'm just, I'm a great reader of history. And so any footnote of a footnote that happened to mention a space in Boston, the one rule we had for the book Secret Boston was there had to be something that you could go and see and experience. It can't just be a story happened at this place. There's some vestige, there's some artifact or event that's there to bring the story to life.
And always public access. Everything you've talked about so far, you can...
Mostly public access. There are some where you need to call ahead and schedule a visit, but I always give phone numbers and emails to allow you to do that. But actually, it's interesting. There's another Catholic site I would plug on that front, which is in the North End, there's this little alley that's become known as All Saints Way. Have you ever heard of that? I'm curious. No. It's between 4 and 8 Battery Street. It's quite far into the North End. And there's a resident there named Peter Baldassari. And for the last 30 years, he has collected statues, photos, saints' cards, anything to do with individual saints. And he's created this shrine, this museum of saint iconography. And the gate, it's kind of sporadic when he opens it, but even if you go today, he decorates it with flowers and little statues of saints, and it's a great place for St. Patrick's Day celebration, along with his other saintly brethren.
You can see it from the sidewalk.
You can see it from the sidewalk. Even when the gate is closed, you can see quite a lot. But if the gate is open, that's when you're really surrounded by it. And he's often there to talk about it.
Going back to the Basilica for a moment.
Yeah.
People were flocking there. I also, you pointed this out in your book. This was pre-medical care, pre-modern medical care, that is, of course. So that gives it even more poignancy as you described all manner of crutches and things that people were bringing in desperate hope where they weren't being solved or healed necessarily by the medical community.
That's right. And I also think it's interesting. So the altar piece is of Mary holding Jesus, archangels above her. And it is a copy of an artwork that is in Rome that also has the reputation for healing. You know, we Catholics, we really love stories like this. I remember when I was growing up, I was altar boy, worked in the rectory, Catholic youth organization president, and my priest, who was very practical minded, once said to me, Kiernan, if they took all the shards of the original cross from all over the world, you'd have about 100 crosses worth of wood. So, you know, how much are these stories? They become legendary over time.
Of course, that is very practical of him, dashing altar boy dreams by saying things like that. Well, from one Catholic to another, John F. Kennedy and his statue in Boston. How have you looked at this statue at the State House?
Yeah, it's funny. There aren't that many JFK. You would think in Boston there might be one every other block. The statue that I'd recommend is on the grounds of the State House. It's now gated back, but you can see it from the fence. And I love it because it's very naturalistic. It's a young JFK striding forward. He's playing with the buttons on his coat. And it just looks extraordinarily lifelike. And it, too, like the famine memorials, is pretty modern. It was put up in 1990. And I would recommend it as a place to go and look at our first Irish Catholic president. Such a good feeling of optimism and progress in the statue. Of course, the Presidential Library is also in town and can be a fun place to visit around now. I just looked before I came in to see what they were doing for St. Patrick's Day. They've got Irish dancers coming this weekend, so that's a good spot. But I thought perhaps I could share a quote from JFK that he made at a St. Patrick's Day celebration in 1954. He said, "There's an old Irish saying that on St. Patrick's Day in the spring, there's a nest in every wood, a trout in every pool, and a heifer calf in every cow paddock in Ireland."
Oh, well, we need to think about abundance right now in springtime and and finding some hope and glimmer of positivity.
Exactly. It feels like it turned today.
It did. I think this is all everybody's talking about it, whether it was upstairs in the newsroom or down here in the studio. Everybody's in a good mood.
Exactly.
Now we understand the bad mood that everybody has been in for the last 3 months as it's been so cold.
Well, there's another legend with that St. Patrick is not supposed to allow it to rain on St. Patrick's Day in Ireland. So here's hoping we keep up the good weather.
And blow a little bit this way, too, in Boston. Well, Kiernan Patrick Smith, it's great to see you. I'll drop the Patrick after today. We look forward to the next one. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Kiernan Schmitt is author of Secret Boston, An Unusual Guide. He's co-host along with Ryan Davis of the travel podcast Out of Office. Thank you again. Coming up, the musician Bad Bunny has been calling on of late. Celebrated Puerto Rican Cuatrista and singer Fabiola Méndez is here for a conversation and mini concert. She's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
In Vienna, the walls have ears. International spies are everywhere. They can do their work freely because espionage is actually legal in Austria.
Basically, we don't care what other countries do to each other on Austrian soil. This is not of our concern.
Hear that story in the day's top global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Boston Ballet, presenting The Dream, a program pairing Frederick Ashton's Shakespeare-inspired ballet and a dynamic world premiere by emerging choreographer Mikhail Stromae. Opens March 19th. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And Safety Insurance, offering a variety of home insurance products to cover your home's increased value. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms. And the Lowell Institute. Mill Talk, Chelsea Clock Company, 146 years of Boston clockmaking. Presented by the Charles River Museum with speaker Patrick Mont. Wednesday, March 11th at 7. Registration info at lowelinstitute.org.
Find that Friday feeling early at GBH Music's Jazz Night, featuring mandolin player Ian Corey and cellist Catherine Bent. Thursday at 5:30 at the Boston Public Library. Get a free ticket at wgbh.org/events.
Contemporary composition and is consequently among those expanding the reach of Latin music today. A composer, singer, and band leader, she's brought that sound from concert halls to global pop stages, including performing alongside Bad Bunny, which we'll get to, while shaping an artistic vision all her own. She'll bring her sound to the Regattabar this Friday at 7:30 and to GBH on April National Jazz Day as part of our Jazz Now series. Fabiola Méndez, welcome back to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here and to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
Well, okay. Can I admit the secret now that I wasn't allowed to share way back when? You're nodding yes.
Yes.
So I knew, we heard about you and I heard your music. We said, we have to have you on the show. And that's when I learned I wasn't allowed to say anything, that you were on the verge of collaborating with Bad Bunny, but we couldn't say anything because we didn't want to jeopardize anything. But tell me about that experience and in being with him and performing with him.
It was a very unexpected surprise. I mean, it's been years of me studying the cuatro and keeping the tradition alive. And, you know, when you grow up playing folk music, you don't necessarily imagine that you will get to play with pop stars or get to big stages because there's this stereotype, right, that folk music is only for the communities, only for like small audiences or for a specific demographic. And with his most recent project, the fact that he took a lot of Puerto Rican traditional rhythms like bomba, plena, Hebert music, the cuatro, and that brought them to kind of like this pop sound, it changed everything. And I received that call, I think probably a couple of weeks after or before I came to talk to you. And I could not believe it. And we had the opportunity of performing on the Tiny Desk, which is a huge stage. And I was also very blessed to perform my own music there just a couple months prior to filming his own with Bad Bunny, his Tiny Desk. But performing not only his music, not only the rhythms of Puerto Rico, but then bringing the cuatro, the tiple, and the bordonua, which are the three traditional string instruments that we have in Puerto Rico, and playing them for him and with the bandmates, it was just incredible.
What is it about this moment that what you were already doing, as I said, bringing folk music into the present? You were a pioneer at Berkeley, the first one who's studying this instrument. Now others are following you. Now Bad Bunny comes along and he's doing the same thing. Why is it all working right now in this moment?
I think there are many different elements. I think the fact that we are living in a time in which people are questioning where they come from. People are really thinking about identity, about roots, about honoring the stories of those that came before us, and also celebrating who you are, owning who you are, and being proud of it. And then the technology and the fact that everything is a lot more accessible, that music has gone beyond the language that you speak or the place where you're from. It's like, if you listen to it and it connects with you, it doesn't matter where it's from. You're going to dance to it. You're going to jam to it. So it's a mix, I feel like, of the present time, the story, the history, and the communities and the technology.
It's really interesting to think about where you came from, and you've talked about how when you were playing the Cuatro as a kid, you were made fun of by the other kids. We can talk about that now because you can say, "Look at me now," next to Bad Bunny.
And that's why I said that when I got that call, it was like, is this really happening? Because I was remembering that young Fabiola learning how to play Cuatro and feeling I've always been really proud of this instrument and of the tradition and of the music that I play. But you never imagine that you're going to go beyond a certain level. And I'm not saying like I would always push myself, but in terms of what the audience was willing to pay for, I don't know. It's just incredible. I have no words, honestly, but really exciting to be living in these times and to see how the influence of Bad Bunny and the music that he's doing has now had an effect on all of us that play cultural music.
And the last question about him before we focus entirely just on you, and you're going to perform for us, which is such a treat. What is it about Bad Bunny? There are certain people, certain huge figures who have it. And whether he's on Saturday Night Live or the Super Bowl or seated next to you in a NPR Tiny Desk concert, you can see this man has it.
I think it's that he's extremely genuine. And in getting to know him, you realize that he's not even playing a character. I mean, a lot of people can say, oh, he's a character and he has this voice that he makes when he sings that's very interesting. But it is who he is. And when you talk to him, it feels like talking to your high school friend. And I think that he portrays that, and people are able to connect with the fact that he's just super genuine, and that he is bringing all these different traditions, and that he's so proud of where he is from and who he is, and in that way connecting with other people that it doesn't matter if you're not from Puerto Rico, you're proud of where you're from, and that's what we're celebrating here.
Well, let's celebrate a little bit more. We'll play a little bit from the concert, and then coming out of it, you can tell us about these instruments coming together, including your own, which you're holding right now. This is from Bad Bunny's NPR Tiny Desk concert featuring Fabiola Méndez on the Cuatro.
Ay, yo la conocí en Miami, en Brickell. Ella sabe que aquí hay ticket. Quiere que yo se la aplique, que pa' casa la trafique. Ey, voy a llevarte pa' PR, mami, pa' que veas cómo es que se perrea. Tráete a tu amiga si te gusta la idea. Dile que esta noche vamos a janguear. Qué rico la vamos a pasar. Aquí nadie se va a casar, pero tú te vas a querer quedar. Ey, aprovecha que estoy soltero.
So again, you're all on that tiny little stage standing together. What are we hearing there in those instruments coming together?
So the very high-pitched guitar that sounds is the tiple, which is our smallest instrument from the string family of folk instruments in Puerto Rico. And then the one that sounds more like a guitar is the bordonua, which is a lower instrument. It's also double strings, similar to the cuatro. So it's funny that in that clip in particular, there's no cuatro sounding. It's me playing the tiple and my colleague playing the bordonua. And then, of course, you have the bass and the congas and the guiro, which is the and it's that particular song we had to practice so much because there's these lines that were in the original album. It's just a synthesizer, the piano, keyboard. But then we had to play all these arpeggios. And I was thinking, oh my God, it's like playing a classical etude. I would have never imagined that playing urban music would have felt like playing a classical etude. But it was a really fun experience.
Well, tell me about the concert that you're going to be performing at Regattabar coming up.
This Friday at 7:30 p.m., I will be performing alongside my band for the Regattabar, and we have a classical repertoire of Puerto Rican tunes, of original music, and of jazz tunes. So as you mentioned in my introduction, what I do is very much tied to the traditions of Puerto Rican folk music, but also exploring how this instrument can go beyond just that sound and celebrate jazz and celebrate Afro-Caribbean rhythms. So it's going to be a journey for those who attend, listening to the traditional sounds, but then to modern sounds using the cuatro as the lead instrument.
And I realized I was taking for granted people just heard our last conversation. For those who didn't or don't know what a cuatro is, again, the instrument you're holding, tell us about it.
The cuatro is a 5 double string instrument. It looks like a guitar and a violin, and it's the national instrument of Puerto Rico. It takes its name from the original amount of strings that this instrument had when it was first developed, 4. Cuatro. But through time, the instrument went through many different evolutions, and now the modern cuatro is 5 double strings. And it sounds like a mandolin, but lower in register. You're going to hear it in a second.
Right before we get to that, what's the significance of the one you have in your arms right now?
This cuatro was made for me in 2011. By a luthier from the mountains of Puerto Rico. And it's the cuatro that has been with me in most, I would say, all of my career milestones. I graduated from Berklee College of Music with this cuatro. I performed with the Puerto Rican Symphony Orchestra with this cuatro. I performed with Bad Bunny with this cuatro. I have recorded 3 albums with this cuatro. So it has been with me. And most recently, I got to travel to Europe with this cuatro and bring my original music for the first time to a new continent for me. So it's part of me at this point. It's like an extension of my body, an extra arm or something.
I can certainly sense that. I can't get over. You're so young and how much you've done already that your career is just going to be huge. But you are going to perform something for us now. What are you going to perform?
Yes, I'll be playing an original song I wrote called Canción de Amor, a Song of Love. Esto es una canción de amor pa'l que se fue, pa'l que tiene que ocultar su soledad. Esto es una canción pa' quienes sueñan, que buscan más allá del fin del mar. Esto es una canción de amor pa'l que se fue a encontrar en sus memorias el andar, el recuerdo de los viejos y su sabiduría. No hay destino sin caminar. Esto es como un soba, abuela, olor a recao recién picao, el abrazo de mi tierra, quien me da la bendición. En otros nidos y sembrar, pa'l que ha visto su cosecha y a los que a diario luchan, a ellos dedico mi cantar. Esto es como como un sobo, abuela, olor a recao recién picao, el abrazo de mi tierra que me da la bendición. Esto es como un sobo, abuela, olor a recao recién picao, el abrazo de mi tierra que me da la bendición.
So gorgeous. Again, that's Fabiola Méndez, celebrated Puerto Rican Cuatrista and singer, with her love song. You can catch her this Friday at 7:30 at the Regattabar in Cambridge. I couldn't help but notice that you're performing with your eyes closed for so much of it. I'm wondering both where you go in your process of songwriting to get there, and then when you're performing.
Closing my eyes allows me to really connect with the music. When I'm performing in front of audiences, I do a mix of looking at the people and bringing them into the space of the performance we're having. But it also allows me to kind of not think about what I see, but think about what I feel and what I hear. And when I perform, especially with my bandmates, it's so much about the connection in the present moment that we're thinking about what each one of us is playing. And if the bass does something, I immediately connect with that and respond to that. And if the drums or the percussion does something, and sometimes if you're just too much in your head of like what I see and like, oh my God, so many people, you can get disconnected from that. So it's also a way of focusing, like really focusing on the intonation of my singing.
I can understand that.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, here we are. Here's the note. Let me sing it.
And then what about the songwriting? Do you have to get into some sort of zone? Do you have to visualize what you're writing about?
Most of the time, I write about the stuff that I'm going through. So I use music, as a lot of artists do with their art, as a way of understanding the world around me and understanding what I'm experiencing. So most of the time, it's based on, I'm going to sit for a second and write some thoughts on a notebook or on my phone. Very rarely I get that melody that comes to my mind that I record on the phone and that it becomes a song. I do sing a lot and I do hum a lot, but most of that stays in my phone or like in the process of maybe this will be a song someday. But I would say that exercise of sitting with my thoughts every day, and it's almost like journaling, just writing, free writing, and then thinking about how to shape it into a song. Okay, I want to have this specific poetic structure, or I'm thinking about rhyme. But I usually do that after I have some thoughts written freely on a piece of paper.
And but by thoughts, do you mean lyrics or music or both?
Lyrics. Yeah, the lyrics usually come first. Sometimes when I'm practicing and I do like a cool melody or arpeggio, I'll record it and loop it and use that. But most of the time for me, the lyrics come first.
Well, Fabiola Méndez, it is such a pleasure to see you again. Thank you so much for performing with us.
Thank you for having me.
I can't imagine what you're going to be accomplishing by the next time we talk. Just promise me that you'll always come back to the show. I know you're going to be on all the world's biggest stages. Just make a little time for us.
I will. Boston is my home, so I'm always happy to be here. And I'm so glad to be performing at the Regattabar this Friday. It's my first show in Boston after 6 months because I was on maternity leave.
Congratulations.
So really excited to be back on stage and to do it here in my hometown.
Well, it's very special for all of us. Good luck on Friday, and thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
Fabiola Méndez is a celebrated Puerto Rican Cuatrista and singer. You can catch her this Friday at 7:30 at the Regattabar in Cambridge. To learn more, check out their website. She'll also be back at GBH on April 30th, celebrating International Jazz Day as part of our Jazz Now series. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow or join us live at the Boston Public Library for Chef Tiffany Faison on her new restaurant. Plus a preview of the Vin Fen Film Fest, which puts the often untold stories of people with disabilities and mental health conditions on the big screen. We're also joined by Chef Paul Wahlberg, who may have a thing or two to say about the proper way to sample a burger, or should I say Wahlburger. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund. Proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
This afternoon at 4 with Marketplace at 6:30. But first...